Record. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
You get Tomboy me today. I hope you enjoyed. And questions. We've covered a lot. We are now out of the Reiki portion. So what
Right.
questions do you have before we move into shamanism, if any? Nothing? Nobody.
Mel,
No.
you got anything? No? Okay, I have one.
Go.
And I was actually just doing my attunement before class, and I find that like you mentioned this briefly at the end of the last class about like when you when you pile different pillows on the table and you were talking about the different bodies. Um and so I find that I get to a point in my attunement where I'm kind of like I haven't really been thinking about the bodies as I've been doing my healing. But then I get to a stage where I'm kind of like, how do I how do I connect at
Yeah.
that level to actually
Good
have a
question.
sense of, oh
What's what?
hey, this what's what? Yeah, because I like, especially for the last week, there's just been a lot at that bridge between my solar plexus and my heart in my back.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, yeah, like I don't know how much of this is like
Physical.
something in my mental body, yeah, or like really just a physical sensation or whatever the case may be. So, yeah.
I love those questions. And I think at the did that happen in this one? Oh no, I didn't. Okay, never mind. No, that's a great question because we don't. I'm getting my curriculums all messed up. I have a lot of stuff. Like, which program is this? I have that in this program, but no, I think it's only my 8-month ones. But
Hmm.
yeah, we'll talk about how to move through the five bodies. Yeah, for sure. So when we're doing a healing session, the first thing to know is that if you're working on yourself and you feel a blockage, don't allow that analytical mind to be like, what body is it, right? I promise the more
Yeah.
intuitively you connect to it, you're gonna be like, oh, this feels like sadness. Okay, now the sadness is gone. Oh my gosh, now it feels like tightness in my back, right? Because even though you're feeling like that, so you have the spiritual, right? You're knowing it's between the solar, the heart, sacral, whatever. It's in that area of your body. You have the chakra awareness. You have the awareness of the
Mm-hmm.
physical that is in your back of the body, not in the front of your body, because your chakras go both
Mm-hmm.
ways. You're having the
Mm-hmm.
awareness, like, okay, it kind of feels emotional, but also feels this. It's just telling you that that blockage is moving through every layer in a different way. And it might be more potent and more evident in some of the layers than another because of how long it's been manifesting or how long it's been sitting there, right? So,
Mm.
how deeply has it saturated through your bodies, basically? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And it's usually like an afterthought. Like I'll be there in my 15 minutes being like, oh yeah, okay, this is feeling good. And then my monkey mind will kind of be like, I wonder which body. I have no sweet clue. Let's just keep going. So I'm definitely following your guidance, but when I come out of it, my analytical mind is kind of like, I wonder.
I will say that as you work through the bodies, you're going to get to this place of knowing how different they feel for you. So, for instance, right before our call, I had another client. I was doing a reading, and I was saying to him, um, the heaviness, I was like, I feel heaviness in your chest. Mind you, we're doing tarot, we're not doing an energy healing. And I said, I feel heaviness in your chest. I said, but it feels more emotional, more energetic. He goes, I always have chest problems. And I said, but it feels more emotional, it feels more energetic. And then we got to talking about loved ones who had passed and unresolved trauma and things like that. And they were a vet and all these things. And you'll know how intuitively these bodies feel to you. Like you'll be in a healing session one time and you'll be like, I'm clearing the heart chakra. Okay. Why do I feel like I just want to go lower? Right. And then you'll feel like, whoa, I feel like I'm reaching into their physical body, right? I feel like I'm reaching in through their chest or their rib cage. And you'll have that intuitive sense. When we start to do healing, it's really important to let go of the analyzing. It's really hard in the beginning, like guilty. Like I analyzed everything. I was like, what is this? What's this mean? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Like, how does this work?
Right.
Mhm.
What I would recommend is if you have an angel or a guide, or if you want to picture a beautiful angel's hands over your hands, or whatever your higher power is, like God, Jesus, universe, Allah, whatever floats your boat. No judgment. It's whatever helps you feel deeply connected. I know for me, I imagine Jesus's hands on my hands, or I imagine angels' hands on my hands because in my near-death experience, that's what I saw, right? That's what started my journey. So it's what my connection to that higher power is. And I imagine I just say to them, like, okay, guide my hands where you want them. And I'll literally feel like, okay, my hands, where are we going? Like I'm not on their head anymore. And then I'll feel the need to like turn my hand. Oh, we're going under the body. Okay. Like literally just be like a puppet for them. And when you do that, you're going to feel much more intuitively connected. But it's also just about, this is the hardest for most people, surrendering. You gotta just surrender. That's why in the beginning there's a lot of doubt. That's why I'm partial to the 8-month program, why I wasn't gonna do this class in like a weekend or a single day class, because at least you guys have some time to really explore and play with it. The more you explore, the more you play with it, the more that doubt will go away. And the more you'll know the 5 bodies, right? So let's say you're working on somebody and you're like, I'm not feeling much, and you start to get that fear of like, am I doing it? Is anything even happening? Or is there heat coming out? Like, forget all of that. Really say to yourself, I am a healer and I allow divine healing energy to move through me. I'm a vessel of divine healing energy. Just repeat that to yourself over and over. Like, I don't need to worry if they're feeling it. Their ability to physically sense something is not a reflection of your work. It's not because it's energy, it's intentional. And they might not have a physical response. They might have an emotional response. Or they might get their own monkey mind because now their subconscious is opening. And a lot of clients, their first session, it takes them about 40 minutes to actually start to feel something. And for years, I was freaking out like, oh my gosh, am I doing this wrong? They don't look settled. And like 30, 40 minutes in, they're asleep. And I'm like, what changed? Nothing changed. They finally regulated. It takes the mind at least 25 to 30 minutes to get into a meditative state. Don't allow somebody's experience, and mind you, I only have you practicing 30 minutes, right? So don't allow those experiences to reflect how good, quote unquote, you are, right? Because really, in a full hour session, people are really going to start to relax 25 to 30 minutes in. And then they're going to be deep theta state 35, 40 minutes in. Okay. And the more frequently they do it, the more they're going to relax. And you're going to see when you see people more frequently, you connect to them easier because every healing session, you're clearing more blockage. They're getting more aligned. You're sensing their energy, physical, emotional, mental easier because now they're more connected to those bodies. They're not so aloof. They're not so apart. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was great. Thank you.
Tangent, but yes, things with this tend to end up in tangents for sure.
Yeah.
Any questions piggybacking off of the 5 bot? Did that answer your question or did I like totally segue elsewhere?
No, no, no. You answered it and then some. So yeah, appreciate that.
Gold star. Okay. Next question.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I guess I still just when you say keep you said keep practicing or keep doing so like is it just doing more and more practice sessions on other people,
It could
finding
be
all my
both.
guinea pigs or like I mean
That's kind of what I was thinking today. I was like, do I want them practicing on me? And that's why I was like, no, we're gonna have you guys practice on yourselves. Because I know in the beginning at first, I even myself, it took me a year before I actually started working on other people. I was like, I don't know, I don't want to do anything on anybody. And it just took me a while to feel comfortable and confident doing it. And so that's why today I'm going to have you guys practice on yourselves, but any kind of practice is practice because everybody and everything is energy. You can practice on a plant for all I care. Go get a plant that you're like, this bad boy has not been doing well, right? And send Reiki to it. I promise you. That's what I'm saying. Orchids are a great plant to do as well because orchids, like, they can have like the worst light and they'll be dying and you'll be like, Reiki, and you'll be like, oh, I'm happy, right? So get yourself a plant that maybe is not doing so hot and watch how doing Reiki on it just for 5 minutes a day. Just setting that intention of you're thriving, you're healthy, your roots are strong, all the heaviness in my house that maybe you've held on to are now washing off of you, right? You could do it on plants, you could do it on animals, I prefer plants other than your animals because we don't want your animals getting all screwy. Um, but work on something and even yourself, right? So today I'm going to have you guys practicing with some of the things that we're going over in shamanism towards it, but you're going to see it's very similar to Reiki. You're going to realize that when people are like, "Oh, I'm a shamanic or quantum or Reiki," that's all the same thing. They're just working at different states of consciousness. They have different intentions. They have different reverence that they pay their whatever to, right? And so just be mindful of that. But when we're working on ourselves, or anybody. The biggest thing, and it piggybacks off the question you actually asked the other day, Sherry, on the group page. Be grounded. Please be grounded. Don't rush into it. I know when I first started, like grounding, centering, shielding took me like 30 minutes. And I was like, at this point, I don't want to do anything. I spent 30 minutes doing this. I don't want to keep going. But I promise it will get shorter and shorter over time. Like now, I could probably ground myself, center, and shield myself in 5 minutes. So that's what, but it took years, and it might take you shorter amount of time. Oh, good for you if it does, because it was not fun. But when you are in that very centered and aligned place, your work is it's so much easier. It's so much easier because you feel at peace. And so when you're working on yourself, if you're like, okay, I am grounded, I am centered, and you're like feeling like trying like force roots down through your sitting bones or through the soles of your feet, you're going to have tension in your shoulders. You're going to have tension in your back. That flow of energy is not going to flow. But if you sit there and you just take that time, just that deep exhale, you're going to feel all of your energy shift. When you feel that energy shift and you sit in that, you're not like, okay, it's shifted, let's begin. No, sit in it. Sit in it for at least 5 minutes. Let yourself be calm. Let yourself regulate. When you do that, if you can even do that, that's your first thing. Like get used to sitting in that because that's a space you need to hold for other people. You need to be able to shift from this very high energy talking all the time, right? Energizer Bunny Jordan too. Okay, let's take a deep breath, right? Like that very quick shift. Because what that does is it shifts your nervous system, it shifts your energy. And in turn, you're more receptive to divine energy because you're shifting out of the conscious mind into a more meditative state. Just talking in this tone makes me want to close my eyes, makes me want to go inward because the nervous system has done it so much. It's like, oh, this is when we're getting ready to do our work. It's kind of like when you have a bedtime routine for an infant. Why does it work so well? Because you do the same thing every night. The brain, the consciousness knows what you're doing. Sit in that silence for 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, you could also be grounding. That silence, that deep breathing. Every exhale, you could be washing clear white light down your roots and watching them go deeper and deeper into the earth, right? You could visualize yourself sinking into the sand as if like ocean water is washing over your feet, right? And you feel your feet sinking in, whatever works for you. But do something that grounds you. I promise you, the more grounded you are, the more at peace, the more calm you are, the more you see this as something you get to do versus you feel like you have to, the easier you are going to feel the energy. But it's just practice. It's practice and also don't have an expectation, right? Like sit there with your ball of light and just be like, ooh, how does it feel today? And roll it around and see if there's any dark spots on it. That's another great practice to really hone in on Reiki and what it feels like. Like visualize this ball, this sphere of white light between your hands and visualize that energy pushing out of both your palms equally. And once you feel it pushing between your hands, I want you to visualize your whole body lighting up with that white light and just sit with that for a while. Practicing Reiki doesn't mean you have to go through the hand positions on yourself. Sometimes it's just practicing feeling how it flows through your body, how it fills you. You could do a self-healing just sitting here holding a ball of white light and visualizing that Reiki energy filling your entire body. And just keep breathing through it and allow that white light to flow and have the intention. This energy is flowing into my body wherever it most needs it right now. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm at peace with that. And I accept that. I promise you, 10 minutes of sitting in that, you're naturally going to be like, ooh, I want to start clearing things. Because now you're going to be so filled and it's going to be clearing all this stuff, you're going to want to naturally start to wash things off your body. You're going to see yourself sitting there with your eyes closed, you're like, whoa, I feel like I need to clean myself. I'm dirty, right? And so it's going to be great. I promise. But it's when I see students struggle when they try to think too much about the systematic way of Reiki, because Reiki is very systematic. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, here. Let yourself sit with it. Trust your intuition and then go through the hand placements if you want. I'm very much going to teach you how to do things intuitively. That's why I bring the shamanic portion in, because that you could apply Reiki in the shamanic portion very intuitively. And it will greatly benefit you. But I recommend, if you want to strengthen your practice and really trust in it, just sit in some silence. One, learn to sit in at least 5 minutes of silence and just breathe. I promise you, you're gonna be like, whoa, this is my safe haven. At first, your ego, I named mine Shannon. If you have one and it talks a lot when you sit in silence, definitely name it. Because I'm like, yo, Shannon, cut it. Cut it. You can't do that today. This is our time to relax. It's our time to be at peace. When you name it, it's not that you're disassociating from it, but you're identifying that's a part of you that is not you today, right? It's a part of you that's most likely rooted in your past, right? Oh, sitting in silence, this is uncomfortable because I've been hyper vigilant from all the trauma in my life. So let's make these uncomfortable thoughts or think that this is stupid, this isn't working, I'm not good at this, waste my time, what a dumb investment. It's going to say all those things, right? Because you're stepping outside of its comfort zone. And your Shannon is like, I don't know what to do here. How do I protect you? Right? Back to the ego and the higher self. And that's when you get to say, Shannon, you don't need to protect me here. I've got you. You're okay. You can shut the heck up and just relax. Okay. Let's just do that for a little bit. Right. And when you start to have fun with it, connecting with that play is what's going to make your work more fun. Like when I have clients come in and they're in a great mood, I'm like, this is going to be a great session, because it's not just my high frequency. Now they have a high frequency. But also, if I have somebody come in and they're not in a good mood, if anything, it motivates me more to have a higher frequency. Like, let's fill them with love. Let's fill them with that compassion, right? Let's help them shift out of that. Like, in the sense of, I get the privilege. They trust me enough to be in this space and to show me how much they're struggling, and I get to work with this higher power, and I get to allow that higher power to channel through me. But also give that to yourself. I'm going to say that again because it's something I forgot a lot. Give it to your damn self, right? Like if you're sitting and you're like, I'm struggling today, and you have a friend that's like, hey, you're doing Reiki. Oh my gosh, I'd love a session. Be like, I would love to. Let's schedule another day and time. Today, I kind of need to be with myself. Don't be afraid to say that. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know where to put my hands today, but I'm allowing this white Reiki healing energy to fill every cell of my body. And just visualize. You can even draw the say hey key all over your body. I draw it on my chest and I imagine it amplifying into every cell. And I just sit with my hands open. I let pillars of white Reiki healing energy come through my palms, my heart, and my head. And I feel myself. And that's how I like to do a self-treatment, because who wants to sit here like this, especially after doing arms and back and overhead presses? You're going to be like, I can't move my arms. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's not relaxing. So you can lay down in Shavasana if you like, corpse pose, or just starfish on your floor, and literally say, higher power, spirit, divine Reiki healing energy flow through me. And breathe. And every inhale you breathe it in, every exhale you watch it expel any imbalances out the soles of your feet. There's so many ways you can use Reiki. Don't be stuck to the rigidity of the hand placements for your own self-healing. Apply those more so to your clients, right? I find that naturally letting it flow through me allows me the opportunity, when I'm ready, to then apply the hand placements. Once I feel like I'm receiving that healing and it's filling me, then I can use those hand placements to clear things away, because that's really what they're meant for, right? When we have the hand placements, we're filling that part of the body with the white light and cleansing it away after. But if you're visualizing your whole body filling it, you don't have to put your hands there. You only use your hands to wash it away. Does that make sense? Am I just confusing you all more? No?
No, it's good for me because I like even the last couple weeks, I don't think I've been doing the hand placements.
It's
Like once I get into it, I'm more in visualization mode. And so I'm like visualizing what I would be doing with my hands in certain areas. Because
Yep.
yeah, you're right. Like sometimes it's just you're
It's
like, this shoulder's getting tight. Yeah.
one of my
So
things.
yeah. So I appreciate the affirmation that it's beneficial to try out different approaches to just see what fits for us.
Oh yeah. And you can
Yeah.
also like you could combine Reiki and that for yourself at least. Like I listen to a sound bath when I do it. I turn on a sound bath that does a chakra cleanse as I'm calling Reiki healing energy to move through my body. And I'll do a whole sacred space, lay my yoga mat down, sage, Palo Santo, draw the chokore, the Seihei key, and one of the master symbols on my yoga mat. And then I lay on it and I visualize those symbols filling my body from the back of my body all the way through, call on Reiki and listen to the sound bath. And it's almost like your own spiritual reset, right? Like play with it, have fun with it. The more you have fun with it, the more you're building a relationship with it. And when you have a
Mhm.
relationship with that energy, you're going to be like, oh, this is how I heal, right? Through being a conduit, right? This is how I move as a conduit of this divine healing energy. So, yeah, very happy it makes sense. Any questions on any of that? Any Reiki stuff? Because we're getting into shamanic healing today. So, if you have questions, ask away. Nothing? If something comes up, put it in the group. Nell, you got something?
Well, I was just thinking, I got excited a couple weeks ago about an altar. And I'm not really one, I'm kind of an inside person,
Mm-hmm.
but the fun of it, of getting a candle or get a stuffed animal or get, other goddesses and whatnot from other cultures and the frankincense. And I started giggling like, this is going to be really fun. So I just wanted to inject that making it fun and relatable personally can ease that performance pressure,
Exactly. And I
and
think
make
that,
you not feel so alone. Yeah,
and that's a big part because I know, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. That makes me happy for you. Because I know for me, I told you guys like my altars, my bookcase I have over here. And I find it changes on a weekly basis based on where I'm at mentally or what I want my week to be. I'll be like, I don't want that plant. I want a flowery plant. And I'll change the
right.
plants out or I'll change the color of the crystals I have on my selenite plate. Or I'll clean it like crazy because I just had a new moon and I want everything to be washed away, right? So it's a great way to have a personal reflection of where you're at on your journey in a visual form. And so let it evolve with you. Like
Okay.
make sure to check in with your altar too. Like I know mine pretty much stays the same a lot, but I do try my best to clean it regularly. I refill my offering of like I have a glass of water I keep by my statues of Mother Earth and Ganesh and my Torah and all of it. And so just be mindful of refreshing it and caring for it as it is a reflection of your energy.
Right.
So it's a physical manifestation you've created of yourself, your own spiritual journey. And so in what ways are you honoring yourself in that spiritual journey if you're letting it collect dust, right?
Right.
And so yes, make it fun, but make it the kind of fun that you look forward to taking care of, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
excited. So
But I
excited.
got excited about that and
Right.
really excited. I'm going to stores looking for artifacts. I mean, I
Oh
started
yeah.
really getting excited about it. So that I thought that was helpful,
Oh yeah. That's the best. Yeah, that could be dangerous going to the stores. I find
I
things,
know.
oh my gosh, I don't need any more. But yes, I
I
do
know.
it all. Okay. Cool. Any final questions? Okay. Sorry if I keep like rubbing my tooth. Something is stuck in it, driving me crazy. Um, so we are going to dive into the shamanic section. I am still writing this section. I think I'm going to make it a separate workbook. I had it in with the level 1 and 2, but I think I'm just going to make it separate altogether. So this way you guys can differentiate between the two more easily. So just bear with me. This won't take long. It's not much is in here. Well, it's a lot, but a lot and a little at the same time. If you want a great book, Shaman Healer Sage is where a lot of the information we're going to be going over is from this book. I love this book. It was fabulous. He writes a few other books, but Alberto Villado, he has a PhD and he spent over 21 years, no, 20 years, over 20 years in the Andes with shamans, just living with them. And he would drive, not drive, but fly back and forth from the US to there and give lectures and educate on it. And so it's a really beautiful book and dedication to shamanic practices. And if you want to dive deeper, it's an easy read. It's a very easy read. And okay, sorry guys. I'm still waiting for actually I can probably turn it off for the next 30 minutes. Because if I don't, it's just gonna keep binging. It's gonna go crazy. Okay, so today's going to be a lot of talking. I do recommend taking notes or just rewatching this recording. But if you're going to rewatch the recording, just genuinely pay attention. Please and thank you. Okay, so in shamanism, we have 6 directions. Okay, so you have the north, south, east, and west, but you also have above and below. Okay. If you hear barking in the background, it's not my dog, it's my neighbor's. Okay. And so when we talk about the 6 directions, first we have the south, which is serpent. The serpent symbolizes knowledge, sexuality, and healing. And so I think a lot of times when people think of serpent and they hear, oh, it resonates with sexuality, they think literally like sex, right? And that's not what we're really referring to here. With the serpent energy is our desire to procreate. It's our desire to collaborate with spirit, with another. And this is where we get that very yogic philosophy of tantric relations, right? And a lot of people think of tantric as sex, but tantric actually refers to a deep sense of interconnectedness, which is why snakes symbolize it, right? And so snakes, if you've ever seen snakes, actually fornicate, if you want to use a more appropriate word. They actually intertwine with one another and they start to make knots. And that's why you have symbols like the bow and knot. Like I have the bow and knot tattooed on me, and it's just literally 2 infinity symbols, basically, one going this way, one going that way. And it represents the interconnectedness of all things. It doesn't end, it doesn't have a beginning. And that's what this tantric serpent energy really represents. And so in shamanism, we would call on the serpent's energy when we want slow transformation, right? When we are paying reverence to the fact that we're all one, that we don't want to shed something right away, but we want to go through the transformation. We want to go through that slow maturing of who we are, that ascension into these higher states of consciousness. We don't want to rush the process of it. And so it symbolizes the essential life force that seeks union and creation. And so think of every cell in your body and how every single cell divides and then it multiplies and it divides and then it multiplies, right? It divides and it procreates, right? And so when we call on the serpent of the south, we could use this when we want to have a balance of our masculine and feminine energy, because with Kundalini awakening, it's 2 serpents intertwining, right? And one serpent represents masculine and one serpent represents feminine. And so as they intertwine, it's actually representing the balance of the fact that you are all masculine and feminine. You are the interconnectedness of duality, right? Of dark and light. And so although serpent symbolizes knowledge, sexuality, and healing, it's also a very gradual transformation. Okay. So if you're in a session with somebody who's lost their desire for life or their lust and passion, you would call in serpent because it represents that sexuality, but also the healing. And you would help them have this very gradual healing of reclaiming their passion, their desire for life, right? and their desire to connect with their sexuality, to procreate, right? So this is great for people who low libido, low testosterone, struggling with fertility or the desire for children, right? They want children, but they don't really have the urge to want to make children, right? That'd be serpent energy. So basically, serpent does a lot of things: knowledge, healing, transformation, and sexuality, but more so procreation and creation. Makes sense. Cool. Okay, let me see. Let's talk a little bit about Kundalini while I'm on this topic, because it's a common question I get asked is like, what is Kundalini? How does Kundalini work? What's a Kundalini awakening? Blah, 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 blah. I have a very abnormal lens on Kundalini than what you will read in the mainstream. I don't think that we go through a single Kundalini awakening. I think that there's a difference between a spiritual awakening and a Kundalini awakening. I think a spiritual awakening is kind of like what you all are experiencing now. When we want to dive into a deep sense of knowledge, we want to explore and raise our consciousness. We might be going through struggles and difficulties in our life, and we're seeking more awareness, more self-awareness, higher consciousness to help us move through those difficulties or to evolve on a personal level, right? Whereas a Kundalini awakening is when you have a deep energetic shift, right? So a like I've had 2 Kundalini awakenings now, and that's kind of why I'm like, you don't just have one. They're going to come in waves, and they will literally feel like a wave of heat moving up your spine, and it will move like this up your spine. And it's that masculine and feminine duality moving up your central meridian, okay? And they happen really randomly. Like I think I think mine literally was happening when I was like dead asleep middle of the night. And I woke up in the middle of the night, I was like, what the hell is happening to my back right now? And it just felt immensely hot. And I could literally feel energy as if something was moving on my back. And it's not, I don't know, like, and that's just maybe that's just my experience, but to me, I don't think it's a single time thing. I know a lot of people in the spiritual community are like, I've had a Kundalini awakening. I'm now awakened. And that's just, in my lens, that's not how it works, because I think of it this way. If this is being awakened and you go through life and you're going through your awakening, you adjust to your awakening, right? So typically we go through the difficulty, we learn Reiki or tarot or whatever, right? And then we kind of acclimate to it. During that acclimating process, you might go through this big shift where your whole life starts to change. That's where you're going to have a Kundalini awakening. It doesn't mean you're going to the next state of consciousness. It's mean, oh, I've integrated all of this. I've now accepted all the pain and hurt. I'm now releasing all these aspects of my ego. So what's happening? Your chakras are able to expand. They're able to feel and hold more life force because you've now integrated more of your ego, right? So going through your spiritual awakening is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're integrating your ego fully. When you fully integrate the ego to that extent, is typically where we have the Kundalini awakening, because Kundalini is rooted in your chakra system. And that means that your chakras no longer have blockages of doubt or fear or grief or sadness or anger, all the very frequencies that create imbalances in the chakras. Does that make sense? Oh. So sometimes we'll go through one normal awakening, adjust, another normal awakening, adjust, and then you have a Kundalini awakening, right? Because you might need to go through a few awakenings for those blockages to clear enough for that Kundalini energy to rise. Like I know for me, I thought I'd been through like a bunch of awakenings, and it was like 5 years into my spiritual journey, I had my first Kundalini, and I was like, whoa, this is actually a thing. I thought this was just some bulbukaki. I was very skeptic for a very long time, which is typically how my brain works. Very skeptical until proven not skeptical. Um, and so that's probably why my degree's in the sciences. I like factual information. Um, and so with Kundalini, like a lot of people explore Kundalini yoga, or even I was doing Kundalini body work as a practitioner, and I don't offer it because I was like, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But it's basically a kind of energy healing where you're working with their aura and your breathing. It's very similar to shamanic healing. but they want you to wear white linen clothes all the time. And there was something about it that really rubbed me the wrong way. It felt very facade-like. If I act the part, I will be the part. And I kind of went away from it. So if I have any caution for you with the spiritual community, if you're going to explore things like that, explore it when you deeply feel called to, not because your ego may want to be. Okay. Because I saw a lot of practitioners that graduated from like I stopped the program. I didn't even finish it. I was like, this doesn't like I invested fully in it and then just I just threw the money away. I was like, I'm not gonna finish this. I didn't want to do it. I was like everybody had to wear white, and I understand white's the color of purity. It also had a lot of religious affiliation. Like in the Bible, it talks about, this isn't what they said in the course, it's just my own knowledge. Like in the Bible, it talks about if you ever make an altar to God, you go and you wear white 100% cotton, and you use full wheat as an offering. You don't use anything other. There's all these uh very rigid guidelines, and I was watching people go through the sessions, and their goal was a more tantric awakening. And tantric is fine and dandy, but tantric doesn't mean healthy, right? We could have a tantric experience that's very toxic, kind of like trauma bonding, right? Like, oh my God, this fornication is euphoric, right? This must be my twin flame. No, homie, no honey bunches of oats. That's a trauma bond, right? Or that's deep disassociation and not integrating. A lot of people explore energy work of that sense, Kundalini and Tantric sometimes to spiritually bypass is what they call it. So it's like self-gaslighting. They think that because they're going through these deep spiritual experiences that they're transcending their ego. But just because you go to that high state doesn't mean that lower state doesn't exist. It just means that you've gotten further from your awareness of it. So the goal with Kundalini, a true Kundalini work and awakening, is knowing that part of my Kundalini awakening is diving deep into that state, which is why people have very profound life-changing experiences with ayahuasca or with mushrooms. Why? Because the bad trip is them going to the depths, and the lovely trip is them ascending. They're getting the full swing of their personal pendulum. But when we do things more in tantric and kundalini, we tend to want to go into this, oh, I'm very enlightened, I'm yogic and guru and blah, 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 right? There's a difference between avoiding the ego and truly integrating it. So that's where being very diligent and honest with your practice is going to benefit you. Side note, for instance, I had a very interesting and humbling conversation with a young man who called me just 2 days ago. And he wasn't calling me for my services at all. He was calling because apparently he was the reincarnation of two deities of balanced masculine and feminine. And because he has no ego, felt the need to proclaim that he had transcended his ego. And it was his job to make sure everybody knew that he was reincarnated on Earth. And I said to him, I said, sir, I don't mean to be rude, but my phone's only for booking and rescheduling. Is there something I can help you with? And he's like, well, I'm just letting you know that I have returned and I've fully transcended my ego. And I said, can you help me understand how someone who's transcended their ego feels a need to proclaim that they've transcended their ego? And he hung up on me. That's very ego in and of itself. That's the thing. Like if you have truly transcended your ego, you just be. You don't feel the need to have other people recognize it. Like, there's not many deities, even in historical texts, that ever proclaim that they're a deity. Which is why in shamanism, the shaman never calls himself a shaman. They're called that by their community. They don't need to be proclaimed it. Other people give them the privilege of that title. Like village healers don't call themselves the village healer, right? It's everybody else that says, that's the village healer. They didn't proclaim that title. Other people decided as a community, in reverence to the service they give people, right? That that's their title. That's when the ego's diminished. It's not when you're trying to be a title, to be awakened, or to go through your Kundalini awakening, or to be tantric, right? It's when you go through your life and you allow it to surface in the time and in the manner it's meant to, and other people bear witness to that, and you see that from your interaction with others. So, hashtag integrity. Let's move on. Next one is Jaguar. It's the direction of the west. You like that one, didn't you? That's pretty much what it all came down to. It was like, I mean, just like have a little bit of integrity here. Let's just be honest. I wouldn't sit here and be like, I've transcended my ego. You guys hear me talk. We all know I have an ego. That's okay. I'm fine with it. I'm meant to. It's my human experience. I'm supposed to have it. Um, Jaguar. Jaguar is the animal of the West. I find that Jaguar, and this probably it won't be the same for you. It might not be. I think that depending on the kind of clientele you attract, you'll attract a certain animal that works in direction that suits you most. Okay. So when we're working with Jaguar, Jaguar is the energy of the West. And it's indicative of sudden transformation. So if we're thinking of astrology, Jaguar is kind of like Uranus. It's like the sudden shakeups, the sudden change, the sudden transformation. This is like when people are like, I can't take it anymore. I need to quit my job. Boom, Jaguar comes in and be like, oh, I spontaneously quit my job, right? That's Jaguar energy. Or when they feel the need to create new life for themselves in a very drastic way. And so it's when people are craving stability and a lot of chaos, they call in Jaguar, and Jaguar is like, okay, I'm going to create the chaos so new ground can be formed, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's something that is very abrupt for your benefits, kind of like when we go through hurricanes, right? And we have this horrible hurricane, destroys a lot of things, but then we have all this new ground and all this new foliage starts to come up because now we have all these seeds that were just blown by all these winds, right? We have all these new opportunities because now there's new land, right? Definitely not talking about what happened here in the Carolinas, not in that case at all. Talking about very natural disasters, not the ones up here. This was not natural. Um, and so when we talk about Jaguar energy, it might seem odd to us that the transforming universe is also associated with death. Yet to the ancient Americans, these two energies of death and life were cut for the same cloth. So basically, I love this portion of it. That's why I'm going to read it to you. Let's see, where is it? That which remained unchanging perished. And that which endured was always changing and renewing itself. They knew that stable, steady states were only temporary because everything in the universe is in flux. In North America, shamans set fire to the underbrush, the unleashing in a controlled manner the forces represented by jaguar. So jaguar, fire, burning away. This prevented lightning from starting, blah, 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 blah. Where is it? It basically goes into talking about how something cannot be reborn or recreated if something else does not die. And so that's what they mean by cutting life and death from the same cloth, that something must go for something to be reborn. You ever notice how in families, when an ancestor, an elder passes, typically within a day or sometimes a few months, a baby's born, right? There's new life that comes from that loss, right? Or something new happens. Like sometimes when we lose an ancestor, you have a lot of people move, create new homes, new foundations, right? Because that ancestor probably represented a big foundation in that family, right? So we have new foundations, new ways of moving, new ways of living. And a lot of times we default to calling it, oh, it's grief. It's how we mourn. We create change. Well, is it how we mourn, or is it how naturally our energy wants to flow? Is, oh, we had a passing, let's create new life, right? Let's honor that death with the creation of something new. Okay. So, um, so if someone's going, if you are in a healing session and you have a client who's going through crisis, they might feel like life is beyond repair. For instance, I was working with a client last week. She's very suicidal, and I called on Jaguar, and at the end of the session, and there's a lot of soul retrieval with her and a lot of integration. I think I might have mentioned her to you guys before, the one who had been emaciated. Um, she's really skinny. When I first met her after a few sessions, she gained a lot of weight. Her body's just not, I don't know, nobody can diagnose what it is, but so we had a session together the other week. I don't see her often. And she sat up at the end of the session, she was crying, and she said, she goes, I just feel so different. She goes, I don't feel like I want to do anything bad to myself anymore. But she went through 5 different layers of soul retrieval, which we'll go over next class, I believe. Where are you? Yes, next book. I was about to say, please tell me this is in here or this story is really irrelevant. But at the end of it, I was blowing jaguar energy into her crown, right? And so that's that death. From the death of this illness, allow her to find new life, right? If that could also be the lens from this abrupt change, right? From her thinking those bad thoughts to the end of the session when she wasn't anymore, you open the crown and you blow this kind of animal medicine into the crown and you allow it to expand through their body almost like a gentle water. And that energy will go where it needs to. And it will follow them for as long as they need it to follow them. That's the intention. It's as simple as that. Okay, Jaguar, run into her brain, spread all over, right? Do what you got to do. And you close the session. And she sat up and she was just crying and smiling and all the things. And so it's really incredible. I'm very partial to, I use shamanic healing and Reiki together, and I'll show you guys how as we go through this next month. But Jaguar energy is probably the one I work with most because I work with a lot of clients with very trauma-based, and Jaguar is more for trauma, for abrupt change, right? And sometimes serpent when they need a little more gradual change. But I also have noticed that as I started, my clientele shifting because now we're in a new energy. We just ended eclipse season, so the next wave of energy is coming. Now it's all hummingbird. So let's talk about what hummingbird is. Hummingbird represents the north. And so this is the energy that's required to embark on the epic journey. Like think of a hummingbird. How small is a hummingbird, right? Smaller than my hand, actually. And I don't have big hands. But hummingbirds are probably the size of a mouse, right? A computer mouse. Okay. And so think about the journey that they make from every year from Brazil to Canada. With them tiny little wings fluttering away and all the weather, all the craziness, and they manage to make this huge migration every year. So at first glance, it would be like, oh, that's not an animal that's suited for a transatlantic journey once a year. You would just think that. But the purpose of this is basically saying that any client who's embarking upon an epic life journey, you connect them with the energy of hummingbird to help them return to the belief and the deep knowing that any obstacle they encounter, they can overcome. It's reminding somebody that even though you are small, you are mighty, right? Even though you might feel small, you're not really small. Look at all the strength that your vessel has, that your vessel can embark on this journey because it's the vessel you were given for this life, for the journey you're on. So anybody going through a difficult time and they feel like, oh, all the odds are against me, hummingbird. No, they're not. You were given that body and that vessel to help you with this obstacle. Because if it were in my body, I wouldn't be able to do it. Who's to say I could? It's not my journey. I don't have the wings for it. You got the wings for it. Go fly away. Go do your thing. Right? And so that's the purpose of the hummingbird spirit. So the North energy helps us embark on great journeys despite tremendous odds, where there is not enough time, money, or know-how for what you're attempting. Hummingbird can provide the courage and guidance necessary for success, right? So you can even use these energies when you are manifesting, right? And so the great thing about that is, like, I was sitting here racking my brain the other day because I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going out of the country the last 2 months of the year. And then now I'm being asked to go to Australia early February. So I'm only going to be home for like 3 weeks. And I'm like, I am not a girl who likes to travel alone. Like, freaks me out. I'm like, let's not do that. And I was like, if I'm meant to do this, spirit, give me a sign. And do you know, the next day I had a big old sign and I was like, oh, I really got to do this. Like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I was like, okay, hummingbird, help a girl out because it's a big journey, right? And so even when you think nothing's going to work in your favor, when you ask spirit to guide you, or I could have said, hummingbird, I really want to do this. Show me that I can do it, right? And spirit was like, you can do it. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm ready to do it. Like you could use these energies for manifestation. You can use them as your guides and you can use them in your healing sessions. So don't think that in shamanism, I'm not just teaching about the four directions so you know them, I'm teaching them so you can implement them in your day-to-day life. Like, let's say, you're going through a lot of change in your identity, right? And you don't want it to be an abrupt change. You say, Serpent, I ask you to help me shed the parts of me that are no longer serving me. Allow me to keep all soul lessons intact and to have deep awareness of the parts of me that need my love, that need my affection, that need to be fully integrated. You can call on Serpent. You can call on Jaguar. Like, Jaguar, please help me diminish these habits that are hurting my health, right? That are standing in the way of my mental and emotional security, right? You could call on these animals as you would your higher power, because they are, in a sense, a part of your higher power, because we're all one, right? They're here. They're meant to be loved, served reverence, just like anything else that is a living thing or even a not living thing on the planet. I was like, seriously thought my phone was ringing, but it's on Do Not Disturb. I swear I heard it in my head. I was like, what phone is ringing? Okay. Um, okay. When we reawaken the great instinct to learn and explore, our lives grow less trivial and mundane and become epic, right? So that's the energy of hummingbird. The hummingbird wants you to learn. It wants you to explore. It wants you to step outside your comfort zone and go across the country, right? It wants you to do these things. It's going to challenge you to do these things so you can see your power, so you can see your worth, so you can see how capable you are. So let's say you have somebody who comes to you and they feel really powerless. It doesn't have to be because of abuse. Maybe they just have been going through a rough time and they feel like everything I do, like nothing's working and I lost my job or I can't do this. Hummingbird. Remind them of how capable they are, right? And you don't even have to tell them about hummingbird. I had a client just the other day. She's struggling to find a job. She just got let go about a month ago. And we had a talk, and our whole talk was about just not even telling her it was hummingbird, but I was reminding her of like, you're exactly what and where you're meant to be right now. This is your journey. Your soul's meant to, you're learning such great things from this pause before your next job, right? It's about helping them have a different lens, right? You don't have to be their therapist or mentor them in that way, but that's how I choose to run my practice. It does not mean it's how you have to do yours, but I typically, when time allows, I try to talk when I can. Okay. Eagle. Eagle is also known as condor. You could call it either one. They're the same thing. So pick whatever label you like. In shamanism, you might even see that instead of hummingbird, they use white buffalo. It's just different tribes in the world use different animals to serve reverence to, okay? But we're going to go with the hummingbird and the eagle just for the kind of shamanism that I teach, okay? So eagle, think of eagle as the higher state of consciousness, right? It is the eyes that see the zoomed out view, which is why it is representation of vision, clarity, and foresight. So this is your higher power, your deep knowing, your deep seeing, your deep awareness. The energies of eagle assist us in finding the guiding vision of our lives. So it connects you to that third eye energy, right? To the energy of the higher self, seeing through the lens of the higher self. It can see into the past and the future, helping to know where we come from and who we are becoming. I think that is a very heightened theme right now, actually, in the collective, is a lot of people wondering, like, who am I today? Right? I've probably been a little preachy about this the last 2 weeks with my clients. Like, there's been a very common thread since our new moon of, am I behaving on autopilot out of what's familiar? Or am I behaving as who I am today? Right? Asking yourself, does who I am today still believe that? Does who I am today still like to wear this, dress this way, talk this way, answer the phone this way, right? Like, who today do you want to be? When you start to wake up every day and say, who do I want to be today? That's the lens of eagle. The eagle's going to help you be very curious and non-judgmental, but observant of your current life experience and the current identity and sight that you have of who you are. And so this is great for somebody who's stuck in the past or has PTSD or is just stuck in trauma of the past. And so when we connect with the energy of eagle, it infuses that healing space and gives the client the ability to have this new clarity and insight of their life, of their situation, right? You ever have that aha moment when you're venting to a friend about the same thing you've been venting about for months and months and months, and you have that best friend that sits and listens to the same story 100 times, and one day it smacks you in the face. Oh, wait, this is why I had to go through it, right? That's when the energy of eagles come into space. You have that deep awareness because now you've gotten out of the ego, which wants to ruminate and ruminate and ruminate, and you've shifted to the higher self that says, hey, but we can surrender, and this is what it is, right? This is the reason. Without it, I wouldn't have learned this lesson, right? Without it, I wouldn't have seen that this is how I need to be for my own mental and emotional well-being, right? So ego helps us connect to that deep intellectual insight. And this is a very powerful energy to use when this is basically the energy we talk about for Reiki, right? It's connecting to that very faint, at first it will be faint, but soft, deep knowing, right? When we're connected to intuition, it's a very peaceful answer. Like if I ask, like, if I really want something, I'm like, Spirit, is this for me? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. Right. So for instance, like when I was asking Spirit, like, should I go to Australia? Every part of me wanted it to say no. I was like, please say no, because I just felt very uncomfortable doing it. They're like, you really do have to go. And I was like, okay, well, give me a sign that I should go. Because I was so resistant to like answering and listening but I knew it was the right answer because it came with this peace, right? It came with peace. And I knew it was my ego was like, let me find a reason to not accept this peaceful answer if I should go. Right? But when it's your intuition, I mean, when it's your ego, it's going to be like, no, don't go. And you're going to be filled with that doubt of like, is that my ego? Is that this? It's going to come with doubt. When it comes from a higher power, you're going to know like, okay, I hear you. I don't want to accept it, so I'm going to ask 500 more times, but I hear you. And I'm just going to keep hoping it changes. I know it will never change because you'll be in that state of peace of knowing that that's the right answer for you. Um, and that's basically ego spirit. Ego allows us to rise above mundane battles that occupy our minds, that make us ruminate, and it helps us see the bigger picture, the bigger reason, the sole purpose behind things instead of the day-to-day, maybe ego-based or energies based in attachment. Okay, so eagle's very, very beneficial. It's actually, I don't use it often myself, but not that I don't like it. I think it depends on practitioner. I think personally I have a very strong connection already with that deep knowing. I think if I started using these when I started my journey, I probably would have used Eagle a lot more then. Um, but the whole talking to dead people thing kind of negates Eagle at this point, I think. So
Which direction is Eagle?
Eagle east,
Thank you.
Serpent south, Hummingbird north, Jaguar west. But Eagle east is always easy because EE, Serpent south, SS. When you do call on me, go ahead.
It's whole talking to dead people thing. Like, does that just like how does that happen, and how does that is different from intuition, and how is all
I
this?
think that's going to be different for like I was a medium when I was a kid and I was very scared of it and I didn't like it and I turned it off for a long time. I was never into energy healing when I was a kid, but I was a medium and it would freak my mom out, my grandma out. My grandma is too. And so is my mom. And so it's very I think it's like an ancestral thing. I think you'll notice a lot of people who have mediumship, their relatives have mediumship. But for me personally, I think anybody can be a medium. It definitely feels it's a different kind of intuition. And because it's like if you were standing here in the room with me physically, I'd be like, okay, there's somebody in the room with me. They feel dead. Like that's what it would just be. It's just this deep knowing. It's really hard to explain because it's definitely a different energy than channeling for Reiki because Reiki is this divine healing energy where somebody who's passed is somebody who's had ego at some point. So it feels like a presence. Um, and it's so hard to explain. Like the reading I just had before you guys, like his brother was passed, and then I asked about the dad, and I said, but your dad's alive. And he's like, how do you know the difference? And I was like, I don't know. It's really just a feeling. It's just a feeling. Kind of like when we were talking about, you'll know when you're in the mental, emotional, or physical body, they're gonna feel different. If and when mediumship doesn't have to come in, you don't have to do that. Like some people don't want to, and it just won't. If you have the intention that you don't want to go there, it's not going to come in, right? If I have the intention, yeah, I want to talk to dead people, I'm going to have a lot of dead people in the room. But that's why I usually tell them, like, I don't want to talk today. I haven't talked to them probably other than the last like 3, 4 days. I probably was shut down to it for like a month, sometimes just like a break because it's a high frequency and it could be overwhelming. Not in a bad way, just like a lot of energy, because it's not a divine energy. You're literally channeling kind of like tarot or somebody else, like you're sifting through their personality and their ego and all of it. So it's a heavier, denser energy. It's not this flowy light energy. Um, but I couldn't really tell you how to differentiate from it other than experiencing it and learning how to differentiate on it on your own, really. That's how I had to learn. I was like, why am I feeling and seeing this? I will say when I was going through a lot of like when I had a really bad PTSD up until about 2 years ago. I had real like horrible PTSD. Like, I couldn't listen to silverware clanking. And when I was at my peak of like my trauma, I was physically seeing people that had passed as if they were really like alive in the room. And I am a firm believer that the more disassociated or the more hypervigilant, the more out of body we are because of our trauma, the closer we are to the veil because we're at higher states of consciousness. We don't deem the physical safe, right? And I know that every time in my life I was going through a lot of trauma or abuse is when I saw more and more people who had passed because I was so out of my body. And the more grounded and the more safe I feel, the more it's a conscious effort to see them. It's more of like, okay, I'm going to let you in now. I'm purposely opening my consciousness to that point. Um, so I think the state of our nervous system is a big reflection on our awareness of them. Like I saw them a lot as a child because I was in a very abusive home, you know. And so I was always disassociated a lot there. And yeah, so a lot, yeah. And went away when I was in college, and then I left college, and then I came back, and then I kind of died and came back, and then it was back a lot more. And so there was just things in my life that were bringing me closer to that veil. Um, is it going to be that way for everybody? No, there's plenty of amazing mediums in the world that probably haven't gone through immense trauma that experience mediumship, but it's just where their state of consciousness is. But I know most of my students that are mediums have experienced a lot of trauma, and we can connect to that other side easily because our consciousness is disassociated to such a high state. That makes sense. I think anybody can be a medium. I think anybody could do healing. Anybody could be a medium. It's all state of consciousness. I think it's all a practice. It's just a muscle. The more you make it strong, the more you're going to experience it. Okay. Where are we at? I'm going to have to turn my phone off. Do not disturb because Mama Duke's is probably going to come soon. Okay. Cool. Okay, let's talk about heaven and earth. So heaven obviously is the above, earth is the below. Okay. So this represents the masculine and feminine. Let me look at, oh, I just want to double check. So the masculine energy is also associated with the sun, when the feminine energy is mostly associated with the moon. The masculine energy is also associated with the right side of the body, whereas the feminine energy is associated with the left lady, okay, left side of the body. So when we're connecting with heaven, the power of heaven is unchanging. The shaman summons it to preserve and perpetuate while understanding that life is a delicate balance between the changing and unchanging. I love this part. The Inca believe that the soul has 3 parts. When people die, one part of their soul, the changing part, returns to the earth to be reabsorbed into nature and become one with all life, right? It changes, it decomposes. With me so far? Okay. Another part, their power and their wisdom, returns to the sacred mountains. And the third part, the unchanging, their soul, returns to the sun. The unchanging is the soul, okay? Our wisdom and power comes from the lessons we learn in this life. And in shamanism, it goes back to the sacred mountains of the ancestors. And that's where we get this ancestral wounding and the ancestral lineage of mediumship, things like that. It's because the wisdom and the power of that soul and its lineage returns. So when they reincarnate, it passes through the mountains and into that physical body, the new body. Okay. So many of the shaman's advanced rites of passage are meant to help one recognize that part of themselves that returns to the sun, the soul, and is perpetual and unchanging, right? So your soul, right, which is why we could do past life regressions, right? It's unchanging. Like your soul is your soul. Like we could go to this life, past life, life before, a future life, all the things, because it's your soul. There's no time, there's no space, and you are unchanging. You are who you are. You might be wearing a different flesh outfit each time you come back, right? But think of your reincarnations as just vacations. Oh, on this vacation, I want to wear this outfit. And you just look different each time. Okay. But it's your soul. No matter what, you're the same soul. So, what else? Okay. The earth. The earth is receptive and nurturing. Its power is to mulch and renew. The bodies of the ancestors are absorbed back into the ecosphere and become one with the trees, the pastures, and the mountains. The changing seasons of the earth represent the mutable quality of earth. In the story of Genesis, the earth and heavens were one in the beginning. Thus, the changing contains the unchanging within it, right? So the earth and the heaven, they're still one. They're north and south, masculine and feminine, but they're separate. They've changed, right? They're changing. So for instance, like the seasons, every year we have 4 seasons. That's unchanging, but the seasons themselves, they change throughout the year, right? So they're changing. And yet the fact that we have them every year is unchanging. That's what they mean by the earth is changing and unchanging. The earth and the heaven, they both have cyclic energy. Everything is cyclic. So they're unchanging in the fact that they continuously change, right? It's a whole lot of confusion I just threw at you, but hopefully you're tracking with me. With me? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, cool. 3 thumbs up. I was a little scared there. I don't know, there's like 2 of you. I was like, are you with me? Okay. So when we summon the energies of heaven and earth, we reconnect to the natural cycle of life. But most important, it allows us to embrace the mother who will always nurture us and the father who will never leave us. This is where heaven and earth get very interesting for clients. When clients have issues of abandonment and they undergo enormous change, it's because they embrace Mother Earth and Father Sky as their natural parents. So let's say somebody has abandonment issues from a parent leaving. In shamanism, they don't think of their parents as the people who created them and gave birth to them. They think as Mother Earth as their mother and Father Sky as their father. And everybody else is a soul. There's a soul. You're a participant on the sacred journey that is life, that is death, that is journey, right? And so the mother of the earth can never abandon you, and the father of the sky can never abandon you. They're always going to be there. They might change and transform, right? Our land might change, right? The land might look like grass one day and mud or snow the next, right? And the sky might be bright when the sun's out and dark when the moon's out, and they might be changing, but they're always there. And so when you adopt the Mother Earth as your mother and the Father Sky as your father, you are never abandoned. You are one with all. You're one with the heavens, and you're one with the very thing that your body will return to, and the Father Sky where your soul will return to. And so shamanism very much harps on the unity, the interconnectedness of all things. So for instance, you'll notice that the more you practice Reiki, especially as a woman, your cycle, if you still have a cycle, will continue to sync with the new moon and the full moon. I know for me, every time we have the summer equinox, my cycle shifts. So I'll go from a new moon to a full moon. And if not a full moon, I'll go to a new moon. And in the next equinox, it will shift again. And I'll know it's about to shift because for 3 weeks, I'll be like, something's changing in my body. And it'll just be this deep knowing. Otherwise, Like, for instance, we've had horrible solar flares the last few weeks, and I have not had a seizure scare in over a year. And I had one Monday, and it turned out we had the highest recorded solar flares we've had in over 2 decades. And solar flares create immense energy coming into the earth. And that time, literally at the time I had my seizure scare, was a time we had an X flare, which is a very, very strong solar surge of energy into the earth. And you'll notice you might get more sensitive to when we have tropical storms and hurricanes, or when there's immense weather changes, or you'll have that deep knowing when there's about to be an earthquake somewhere. It's because you're starting by using universal life force, by connecting with this energy, you become one and interconnected with all things. Like one of my girlfriends, she's like all about following solar flares. And I said, there has to be a tropical storm or a solar flare or something, because I've had 2 days of seizure scares now, and this is not normal. And she sends me screenshots, screenshots of like tropical storm and solar flares. And I was like, I knew it. It's not fun, but it's your body being one with all, right? Being one with the universe, being one with that interconnectedness. And you're channeling that interconnectedness on a regular basis. And so by doing so, you are one. It's in your body. Your body is one. You're sensing, you're feeling it all. You're basically a walking avatar movie, and it's fabulous. So just enjoy it. It's fun. It's cool. Okay. Questions on any of that? Okay. So Mother Earth, another way to use Mother Earth in a healing session is when a client wants to feel safe and nurtured and secure. If you have a client that struggled to be grounded, I usually visualize them laying in a field of grass and allowing the wind of Mother Earth to just relax them and the wave of that grass to relax them and let them lay in the grass in my mind's eye. Basically, my intention is that they're grounding when they're ready to. I'm not forcing them back into their body. I'm not forcing them to be grounded. I'm imagining Mother Earth cradling them, being their mother, right? Father Sky is when people have a disconnected relationship with their higher power or their soul, right? When they're struggling to feel safe, connecting or trusting in the unknown. Using Mother Earth as a guide is very, very beneficial for that as well. Sorry, Father Sky for that. Let's see if this is no. Okay. Lower, middle, and upper world. Let's talk about this. So this is typically when we get into like journeying and shamanism. You'll hear, let's journey to the lower world. Let's journey to the middle world. Let's journey to the upper world. There's actually a fabulous book. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I have way too many books. If it wasn't evident enough. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the lower world holds the hidden treasures of humanity. It's a place of rich and fruitful darkness where we can find the disowned parts of ourselves and abandoned aspects of our psyche. Shamanism is all about psychology, which is also why I'm kind of partial to it. When we go to the lower world, you're basically exploring your trauma and your ego. That doesn't mean it has to be bad. It could also be an experience where you're like, you know what? I've already had these experiences. I'm safe to go explore them. Okay. The lower world is the place of our ancestors where we discover the gifts and lessons from the past. It's the realm of the collective unconscious, right? So this is what's hidden, what we don't want to see, what we don't want to acknowledge. That is the lower world. Kind of like how we talked about in Reiki, the back of the body, right, is the unconscious. In shamanism, they call it the lower world. Same thing, different label. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Where are you? Middle world, our physical existence, right? It's the realm of day-to-day reality. It's the playground of the living. It's the present moment where everything is happening, yet the middle world is created by the future, not only the past. And it is a mirror of the invisible realms. When things are right in the middle world, heaven and earth support everything, right? So when you're in balance with heaven and earth, your physical experience reflects that, right? So if I'm sitting here and I'm like, I know that I am safe and I'm secure and I'm grounded, deeply rooted in the present moment. And I have faith that everything coming into my life, like faith, higher power, Father Sky, Everything coming to me is working in my favor. I'm exactly what and where I need to be. My middle world, it look fan-titty-tastic, right? But if I'm like, I have faith that everything's gonna happen, and like I'm not grounded, and like tomorrow's gonna be a great day, and tomorrow I'm waking up to millions of dollars, and tomorrow I have my husband, and tomorrow, and you're not present, today's probably gonna look a little rocky. Today's probably going to challenge your faith in Father Sky and your higher power, right? Or vice versa. If you're trying to connect to spirit, but you don't feel safe enough to surrender and really ground into the earth, feel safe enough to sit and acknowledge that, like, hey, just saying like grounding, I struggle with that. I struggle to surrender to grounding, to being in silence. And that's okay. I see that and I accept it. It is what it is for me right now. That simple admittance to yourself will help you progress drastically. That's so often we just allow that thought, oh my gosh, I'm struggling. Oh my God, I'm not good enough. Oh no, I can't do this and I can't do that. Instead of just saying, okay, there's parts of me that really find this difficult. And that awareness is where you start to overcome that difficulty. Just acknowledging, okay, this is one of my struggles. It's not going to be for long because now I see it. Okay, and I know what to do here. I know to sit. And I know that my voice might challenge me for a little bit, but I'm just going to sit with it. And the more you do that, the more you connect with the earth, the more you connect with that lower world, right? Because you're acknowledging parts of the fear, the doubt, the insecurity, and you're choosing to give yourself compassion and grace, right? That of the higher frequency towards those emotions. That's where you're bridging Father Sky and Mother Earth, where you're bridging higher self and ego. You see how they're all the same thing, but different labels? Okay, cool. Just also why I'm kind of, I go through this a little faster, which is working out because we're making good time. We're covering a lot of things. Um, doo, 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 doo. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. I must be losing my mind. I know it's in here. Upper world, angels, divine helpers, the ancient ones, and all varieties of luminous beings populate the upper world. It is the place where you go to retrieve your destiny and find out who you will become, right? Meet your higher self, basically. Discover your great potentials and undreamt of possibilities. It's also a place where the spirits of the dead arrive when they complete their journey to light, which is why as we ascend to the upper world, as you ascend in your consciousness, mediumship is very normal. You'll meet hundreds of people that are like, oh, my Reiki master or my Reiki practitioner always sees dead people. Well, know why? Because they've probably been practicing long enough that they know how to get to those higher states. It's very common with energy work because you've started to trust in the divine. And mediumship is not like what they say it is in the movies. It's not scary. It's not bad. It's not spooky people. It's not ghosts with sheets on them. They literally just are like normal people. And you're like, yo, creepy Uncle Tom, can you not touch my shoulders? Can you stand right there? Like I've had so many people that come through and I'm like, guys, just don't stand behind me. Like that's my rule. Don't stand behind me and don't physically touch me. If you're going to stand in front of me, I need to be able to see you and your face needs to be visible. And that's my rules. And I tell them and then they'll show that to you. And if they can't, I'll be like, cool, you got to go. Just as if somebody were to walk in my house and they broke a rule that I have for my house, right? Like you can't come in and take your pants off, sir. You have to go, right? Things like that. So whatever boundaries you have in real life, you can have with them. They're just like people. It's not like in the movies. They're not going to jump out and scare you. I've had some that are like yelling and angry still. But it's usually because they want to protect the person on the table. They're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This isn't what we do. Like they're probably really religious. And I just walk them through what I'm doing. I'm like, well, if you stand there quietly, I'll gladly educate you. But if you can't be quiet, then you gotta go. Then Uncle Tom chills out.
If they're really in a different realm and they're dead and all that, like, why would they be angry at you for doing it? Wouldn't they have like be all knowing at that point? Like,
Not necessarily, right? Because you're talking to the soul of the person who has passed. You're not talking to the higher self. You're talking to the consciousness that the individual in front of you was connected to. So that's like if you were doing healing on me, it's like if you ever watch shows, have you ever watched shows about mediums and their readings? The first thing they typically do is describe their demeanor, their humor, their stature, right? Because when spirit comes through, like for me, I typically don't see a face. I get the deep knowing of their features. They feel like a very tall, very like structured person. But I think in reality, they're actually quite petite. So it tells me that they probably take up a lot of space. They probably have a big personality, right? Or I'll be like, they keep showing me an orange puffer jacket. Like I had a student, and I was like, who's this guy with an orange puffer jacket? And I feel like he's trying to hug me like a brother would with his arm around my neck and like squeeze me. And I was like, I don't like that. She pulled up a picture of her friend who had passed in an orange puffer with his arm around her like this. And so they'll show you things and give you intuitive hits to describe their existence on the human plane. So that's why they don't come through all knowing. Because if they came through all knowing and I was describing them in their all knowing form, would you know who I'm talking about? Probably not, because it wouldn't be relatable to who they were in this existence. And the purpose of them coming through is to give a message from who they were in this life that you knew, that you resonated with, that you understood. So they'll come through, and after they come through and they show you all that they want to show you, so you have an idea of who they are, that's when they give you their message. That's when, like, I had another student, she has like 6 dead people come with her every time. She's like, can you leave your family at home? That'd be great. And I said to her, we were talking about her father passing, and the father finally said, tell her to stop talking to me. I hear her all the time. I'm not upset with her. She thinks I'm so upset with her, and I'm not upset with her. I hear her. She's fine. I forgive her. Tell her to stop. She talks to me all the time. I have things to do. And so his things to do are visiting other people, but he's always there with her. He's always, because she's always calling on him. She's always talking to him. She's always like, oh, I'm sorry I wasn't there, because they lived in different states when he passed and all this stuff. And so there's a lot to heal. And so their messages will come through as their personality. Because if you had a past loved one and they came through and they were talking to you as this all-knowing energy, would that be as comforting as their actual personality translating? And the actual human that you knew and you related to translating through, right? So them coming through without being all-knowing is actually for your healing, for your deep love, to remember that connection. Does that make sense? I wish I recorded that. That was a great way to explain it. I don't think I'll be able to do that again. Limiting beliefs. Stop it, Shannon. Yes, we will. That's a great question, though. That's a really great question. I've never had somebody ask that question, because it's a very valid question. It's a very valid point. And I personally think that I know my great grandmother, she's 105, 106 when she passed. She just passed last year, the year before. And she stayed in limbo for so long. My mom, is she on the other side yet? Because my mom was like, which way did she go? Like, you only go up, Debbie. Like, you only go up. This is like I'm not even gonna say it. Anyway, but hey Debbie, hold on. I was just saying your name. Your ears must have been itching. Okay, my door's unlocked. Just come on in and sit downstairs, and I'll come down in a little. I'm finishing up some stuff with them, and then we're gonna do the shadow. Okay, love you, bye. It's like she knew. So for instance, my great grandmother, she stayed in limbo because her life was so long. And when you stay in limbo, it's because they're doing the audit of what you learned, what you didn't learn, what you want to learn in your next incarnation, if you're going to incarnate again, all these things, right? And so she spent more time in limbo because there was more information to review. And I was like, gosh, she just feels so angry. And that's how I knew she was still in limbo. Because when you get to the other side, your anger's gone. You feel this immense forgiveness. And so in the sense that all knowing, that's how it shows up when they pass. Like, I know when I went to the other side, I think I told you guys this, like all that feeling of like how much I was judging myself, like for little things, all washed away, and like this immense forgiveness, and all my anger was gone. I felt such peace, right? And when you get to the other side, that's what you feel. You don't have that anger. And so I knew she had crossed over to the other side because I didn't feel her anger. My great grandmother's very angry. She was like, she had cancer 3 times and beat it without treatment. They don't know what happened. She's like, just let it take me. Like, finally, like, I'm done. I don't want to be here. World wars, depression. I don't blame her. So she was very angry when she passed. And then I knew she had passed because she didn't feel angry anymore. She looked like how she looked when she was in her 60s, when I had met her when she was much younger, much happier, much lighter. And so that's why I say when people pass, they typically take on the healthier lighter version of their energy. Like my late brother, when he comes through, he looks like his teenage self. He doesn't look how he looks in his 40s when he passed. He looks like his teenage self. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you're already young. Like I'm older than you now. And so it's interesting when they come through in that way, for sure. But in that way, that's how they embody that all-knowing. It's that they're in that higher consciousness of their optimal health and well-being and peace, and the ego is diminished. But I wouldn't say it's fully gone, because if it's fully gone, how do they relate to you in this consciousness? You know? Cool. Okay. For the sake of time and my mother arriving soon, let's migrate downstairs. Change of scenery. You guys get to come on a field trip with me. You're gonna not hear me as well for a few seconds. Can you still hear me? Okay, good, 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 good. You'd be happy to know I was free of coffee for about 2 weeks, and yesterday I was not anymore. Blame my boyfriend. It wasn't my fault. He's a bad influence. Just kidding. He's not. Okay, let's go. If you want an example of my altar, so that is basically my altar, my plant, my salt lamp, my deities. I have selenite plate. That is a whiteboard with all my letters to spirit. All the things. Okay. So weird not having my dog here with me. It's like abnormally quiet. I don't know how I feel about this.
Where's your dog?
She's at my mama's, hanging out with her other,
Okay.
having a play date,
Mm.
as usual. On the weekends, that's her play date time. Okay, let's see. Great time to go get your water, take a bathroom break if you want. We have quite a few things to still talk about, but just migrating for the sake of ease. Oy vey. Okay. Do not disturb. Let's pull up. Let's just do this. Okay. Let's see. 4 directions, lower, middle, upper. Sun and moon, we'll talk about a little more. Okay. 12:30. She's here. Hey, sweet pea. Okay. You look cute.
Oh, I don't need it. Please. Take this off because she'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Let me see him. Raffle daffle me.
I just did
That's what I was gonna do.
here, and then I got a muted tone on my clothes. It's an eh.
You fancy. Don't tell me this is dead. I need to turn my air off. It's freezing in here. Oh. Is this heat? I'm gonna put it on here. No, I know, I gotta take it out and I'll give you one. You just leave it in the corner of all the sunlight and it'll be good. Huh? Isn't it too? It's like a Dr. Seuss supplement. It starts curling and moving. You and me both. Okay.
Shoes off.
You do it. I gotcha. Let me get rid of that. There you go. Okay. You got all fresh bedding.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Well, I cleaned myself, so it's all clean too.
Oh, thank you so much.
So fun. Just, hey,
Show up rancid.
shut up.
How considerate.
Oh, good.
You're not mic'd up yet, but I am. Okay.
Oh, glasses here.
We're going over the shamanic stuff today, so I'm
Okay.
gonna be playing with some water, fire, earth, wind on you. Yeah. Woohoo. Okay. Let me see.
I love this mattress.
Everybody says it. I love that mattress.
I love this mattress.
I should start getting a commission from Nectar for the amount of people that ask about that mattress.
I love this mattress. Like even I got a brand new one and I don't like it as much as this mattress.
Yeah.
Okay.
I told you, you gotta go with it. They're good. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Mama, do a mic test.
Hello, hello.
Can you hear Mama? Yes. Okay. Mama Duke's ready to go. Okay. So you want another blanket? It is kind of chilly in here.
No, I'm good. Perfect.
Oh, you're I'm gonna attach some worksheets for you guys about the auric body. I'm gonna talk about that stuff today though. You cool just laying there for a little, taking a nap?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. That makes my life easier because then I can talk to you guys about this stuff on here with the aura, and I can even share it my screen with you. Perfect. Rockstar. Okay. Give me 2 seconds. Beautiful. Okay, let's see. Does that make it better? No, that makes it worse. Okay, let's do this. Okay, can everybody see this? Cool. So I'm going to put these worksheets in the shamanic section. So if I move through it rather quickly, it's just because it's already 12:35. I want to make sure that I can walk you guys through a visual representation of the kind of things that we've been talking about today. So you will have this to reread. This is just some additional information about the aura. I know you guys, some of you are probably already familiar with it. But basically, the aura is the electromagnetic field that expands approximately about 1 foot to 1.5 feet around your entire body. So think about spreading your arms out, reaching them up overhead, all around you. This is your auric bubble, right? So this is your bubble. It's kind of like you ever in a group space and somebody gets a little, you feel them approaching, you're like, okay, they're hitting my energy now. I don't want them to get any closer. That's when you're starting to feel like, okay, you're good there. Now you're a little too close for comfort. When they're a little too close for comfort, they're in your bubble. Get out of my bubble. Here's the thing with auras. Auras can have holes, rips, tears, imbalances, but you could also expand them. Like Nell, actually, you got to come to my workshop where I showed you guys this, and I did the exercise where they were all in groups, and I expanded my aura really far for one group, kept mine really close for another, and had it a normal size for another, and had everybody try to push against me. And with the one group I expanded all the way, they were like, I feel like I can't push at all. So with your intention, you can expand your energy, you can expand your aura, and people will know this. It's kind of like when you walk into a space and people are like, whoa, you kind of have this standoff vibe. They probably have experienced a lot of trauma. They probably have a little bit of RBF going on. So their body language is already saying, don't come near me. But on top of it, you also have this aura, right? Are you laughing because you know this is me 10 years ago?
No, I'm
Oh.
thinking of clients.
Oh, I was like, yes, this is totally me as a
The
teenager.
mummies, I work with trauma.
Yeah. And so hot tamales. And so what happens is we naturally create this energetic field that says, don't come near me, right? Stay away from me, right? You ever walk into a group event and there's one person standing alone in the corner like this, and they're like, nobody come near me, right? And they're just kind of chilling. They have that very strong defensive aura, right? Whereas people who are really welcoming, it's like, oh, they might have a big energy, but I want to be near them, right? Like I know when I don't laugh at this. When I became a healthy Jordan, I had a lot of people like, I want to be your friend. And every toxic part of me wanted to be like, oh my gosh, I'm too happy. Nobody, I don't want people to be my friend. And I wanted to start pushing that opposite energy back out. And so know that as you heal, as you integrate your ego, as you evolve, your aura, the energy that you emit will change. The thickness, the denseness, the magneticism of it, if that's even a word, will also change. Okay. But this is what is basically the energetic representation of our soul, our spirit body, your life force, whatever label you want to call it. Okay. So signs of a healthy aura for people who see auras. I know I saw like auras for a while. Now I basically see, this is going to sound really funny. I see like wings on people. So I know people who have a lot of trauma or are very toxic. I typically see black wings with a lot of chains or rips or like molted feathers. And then for people with very bright, vibrant auras, I see very big or sometimes even small and delicate wings, but they're a lighter color and they look healthy. And that's how it's depicted to me. Back in the day, I used to see them as an actual auric color around them, or I would just sense that they have a very soft or maybe rigid energy around them if it's unhealthy. So when we're in a healing session and we want to, I'm actually not going to do it on screen yet because I'm very small, probably compared to the size of this workbook page. But I'll show you guys how I scan an aura on a client here shortly. I have this worksheet that you guys will see, but don't hold yourself to these colors, right? Explore what the colors mean for you. This is just a guideline to kind of get your brain juices flowing. But if at the end of the day, you see orange and you don't think of it as intelligence or joy of life, you think of it as someone with like intense vitality or someone who's really creative, right? That's okay. That can be what it means for you because your consciousness is going to show you things in a way that resonates for you. So these are just kind of to get your brain thinking about what colors could mean for you. Don't allow this to be your ride or die of what that definition is for you. Okay. Cool.
How do you see these auras?
That will develop in time. Like honestly, I don't really see the color of people's aura. For me, it's more of a deep knowing now. It's just kind of like what did I hear earlier? I said it on our call. I can't remember. But oh no, it was the reading before you guys. Like I heard a very specific month and I said it to them and they said, "Do you like see a calendar or something? Like how do you know these days? How do you know these months?" And I just tell them, "Well, they just tell me, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So it will be different for everybody. I have some students who are very visual with auras, some who are just a deep knowing and they sense it, or it's more of a temperature, or if it's more of like how I don't want to use the word powerful, but how vibrant the energy feels, right? If it feels very vibrant, they know they have a strong, healthy energy. But if it feels very dull and diminished, they're probably really depleted or depressed or recluse in their energy. So it might not always be a color, but you might have an intuitive knowing of what that color is. Okay. Or you might not get a color at all. There's plenty of times I don't even think about color. It's just, yeah, just trust yourself while you explore it and trust the way it appears for you, because one way is not better than the other. It's just the way in which resonates with you and how your intuition receives messages. Does that make sense? And that's pretty much all of energy healing. Like, I think I know for myself too, like I had a lot of limiting beliefs about my practice and like if I was enough, if I was doing enough, if I was doing it right, because there's other people that could see. And for me, it was always deep knowing. I just had the deep knowing first, and then I started to see. And then after I started to see, I started to feel more, and so on and so forth. Like we said when we first started, think of your spiritual quote unquote gifts as different languages. And the more you travel to all these different countries or states of consciousness, the more you learn more languages. You get more gifts because you're having more experiences. You're going to different states. You're learning how, in those states, what you sense, what you feel. And you might travel to these different states in a different order than another practitioner. And so you might learn things in a different order than another practitioner, but just give yourself grace in that. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. So here's some really common energy imbalances. Let me see where, oh, okay. So we can have spiritual intrusions, which are basically stuck, unwanted, and unhelpful energies that get trapped in the energy field. So this could show up as like you might see just like or sense like a heaviness coming into their energy, and you might naturally just want to like send healing and like push it out of their bubble. That's a spiritual intrusion. This, honestly, these intrusions can be somebody you cut off on the highway flipping you off, right? They're sending you this energetic dagger, this negativity, right? It could be you spewing negative words with somebody at some point, getting into a fight with somebody. Those words, you're spewing venom at another, right? It's an energy, those words translate to energy and they can harm your aura, right? It's kind of like we have a fight with somebody and we're hung up on this one thing they said. That's your dead giveaway that you have a spiritual intrusion, or you have something that has ripped or tore through and affected your energy, right? Because you keep ruminating on it because it's in your energy field. It's in your awareness now. Does that make sense? Okay. So the weak outer aura is the outermost part of the aura, meaning like, so if I have a bubble around me right now, the inside of my aura is the part that I'm touching from inside my bubble. The outer aura would be the outside part, right? So this means that like from the outside, it's weak. It means that my aura can cave in, my energy's easily broken into, right? So this could be your empaths and your healers, right? We typically have weak energy and suffer with lots of codependency because we don't have that strong energetic boundary or maybe even literal boundaries in life. Okay. So this keeps our vital essence, our life force intact. It's also where we have issues with spiritual or psychic attacks and the inability to communicate clear boundaries with others. So the stronger your aura externally, the stronger your protection, your shield, and also typically that reflects in the physical as you having more confidence in yourself and what you need to keep yourself safe and mentally and emotionally in a very stable and healthy place, which all translates to very healthy boundaries, right? Especially with energetic work or any helping field. I work with a lot of people in helping fields, right? And when we help other people, we sometimes want to blur our boundaries because of that empathy, for that compassion. And when we get past the point of realizing, like, okay, this blurred boundary is making me compromise my balance between work and personal life, or my boundaries between what I need for my time and my health, right? When we get to that point, that's when it's going to hit you like a freight train. You got to have strong boundaries. So this is me basically telling you, implement those boundaries now, or you will probably regret it down the road. I've been there. I've done that. Don't do that. It's not fun. It's not fun. Cloudy or muddy auras. I think this is the most common. You'll typically always see this by people's feet. The same with a darkened aura, and unbalanced stagnant energy. All four of these things, it's basically just things that make people feel stuck or stagnant, which is why it's by the feet usually. This big ball of black, yucky heaviness from the knees down or even the hips down. It's their inability or their struggle to ground energy. And that's what stops them from moving forward, to take action for themselves, to be stuck in the past or old mindsets. And it's always around the legs because the legs are indicative of our ability to move forward. When we have a darkened aura, this could be depression, anger, anxiety, fear, PTSD, right? It's just a very dense energy. Unbalanced or stagnant energy. So this could be where you see that dull, dark, weak energy. I see this a lot as like patches on people's bodies. Like if you were to visualize their physical body, like just spread out, you typically see that as patches. So if you ever visualize yourself and you're like, oh, there's like this patch of black yuck on my arm, that's just old, stuck, stagnant energy. Just wash it off, right? You see this a lot with people with autoimmune, cancer, just your very heavy, dense energy, right? It's stuck, unbalanced energy that's kind of ruminated in the body and the energy field for quite a while. And so when we start to have that awareness of this stuck, heavy energy, what you're really doing is starting to become aware of the imbalances in their nervous system, in their vagus nerve, in their spine, right? All 5 layers of the body where this imbalance is manifested. Okay. So you just send white light to it and it starts to really wash away. This is not partial to shamanism. This is for both Reiki and shamanism. It's just energy healing. You just send white light into the aura. And just have the intention of clearing that heaviness away. And you will notice you're a lot lighter. And that's the purpose of fluffing the aura, right? We're getting rid of all this density, this heaviness from the feet all the way up. We're fluffing those energetic dust bunnies, that stuck, stagnant energy. That's why we fluff it and we fill it with white light and we wash it into the earth because we're carrying it out of their bubble. And that's why we always feel lighter once we do this because we're moving that stuck, stagnant energy. How often do we sit and we're like, oh, I'm going to wave my hands in a circle? Not very often. But when you start waving your hands in a circle, you're going to realize, wow, this crazy chick has a point. Okay, cool. Any questions on this? I do have a page that has some pictures of it. I'm just trying to scroll for it. Where art thou? Aha, I found it. Okay. So you'll see here, we have the weak outer aura, holes, rips, and tears. This is probably the most common. This and the one next to it. That dark, dull aura with the unbalanced energy, all that heaviness that see from the hips down, most common, and from the head, the most common. Why? Because it's where we struggle to ground or where we're ruminating and where we're housing all the heavy energy. Have you ever practiced on yourself or somebody else and felt like, oh my gosh, the head's like really intense, I don't want to touch it, or oh my gosh, their feet feel really like cold or disconnected and I don't know what to do here? It's stuck energy. There's a barrier. So when we're working with holes, rips, and tears, what you're doing is you're visualizing that white light almost being like the magic eraser, ooh, words. It washes right over that spot and it gets rid of that heaviness, gets rid of that hole, that rip, that tear. Think of it almost like you're spackling a hole in a wall. You're just like, I'm just going to fill it with some nice white spackle. It's literally your intention is everything. You could visualize putting a white band-aid on it for all I care, as long as you are imagining that that band-aid magically diminishes. Or even better, how about the stitches that sink into the body? That's probably better because a band-aid, eventually you have to take it off, right? But you want something that's going to stick, something that's going to hold. I usually just allow the white light to fill that space. And I imagine it being all sealed, all one. And I'll put my hands inside the aura and one outside the aura, kind of like pottery again. And I just make sure it's all smooth. And I'm sending that white light all around their body, outlining all of their being. Okay. Questions so far? Nobody? Okay. So the most common question I get is, what about cords, unhealthy relationships, and things of that nature? So unhealthy relationships are probably one of the most common attachments people have on their body. They will sometimes, they're going to show up for you the way that they need to show up. I will tell you how they show up for me, but this is the way that they show up for my consciousness to understand it based on my life experience, right? So for me, I typically see ropes, chains, hands, or boots on a throat if they have had physical abuse, they felt constricted, they've had issues with authority. Boots, right? So a army boot, for instance, is typically what I see, or a very male, strong, like work boot will typically be on the client's throat if I'm working on them. That tells me that they have issues with authority or they've had a distorted masculine figure in their life. I get that imagery because my consciousness, that's how it resonates with that message. You might see something else. You might just see some black there, and that's okay. But when I see imagery like this, it tells me that it came from an external source. It came from a relationship. So as you see here, they have this little attachment looking thing. Attachments can be energetic manifestations of your own limiting beliefs, your own fears and insecurities. So for me, those usually show up as black snakes wrapped around somebody. It's a belief that's constricting them, that's holding them back, that's stopping them, right? Or it's a leech, something that is sucking the life out of them, right? Sucking their life force away. And so when you see these things, don't be like, oh my gosh, it's an alien entity. No, it's showing up that way. So your consciousness has an understanding that there's something here that's unhealthy. And you don't have to rip it away. You never, let's just blanket statement, don't rip anything away. Don't pull anything. You send white light to everything. And when it's ready to remove, it's going to easily just go out. Okay. It's different. Like I pull buckets of heaviness out of people, but they're ready to remove the bucket. It's just that the bucket itself is heavy. Does that make sense? Like there's nothing holding the bucket there. It's just that it's a bucket of heavy black yuck that's stuck in the pit of their stomach usually. And so when you watch me do a shamanic healing, you'll see me lift things like this and be like, whoa, it looks like she's pulling. It's just that it's a very heavy bucket of yuck. And it's just that there's a lot of heaviness that they were holding on to. They're ready to let go of, but it's just heavy. So you send white light to all of this and it will slowly release. But the reason I say you don't rip, pull, or tear anything out is because it's like therapy. They're going to get there when they get there. If you do rip something off a client, they will have a physical manifestation of this, usually an anxiety attack, a stomach virus, or over the next few days, they will have like what I don't like this term, but it's called a spiritual crisis where they feel like they can't make sense of like, is what I just did good for me? Is it bad for me? And they start doubting like the energy work, who they're working with, if they've done demonic work, all this stuff, because they're going through such a purge because you removed something that was probably not healthy for them, but you removed it before they were ready to. So their mental, emotional, and nervous system body wasn't able to process the removal in a healthy way in their time, right? Whether or not you can see it's good or bad for them, it's not your decision to dictate if it should be removed. It will remove when it's ready to. Does that make sense? And so really, if you don't know whether to remove it or not, just send white light to it. Just send white light to it and just continue to wash the body. And if it stays, before you close the session, say, I continue to send white light to this. And I ask that spirit be with them and allow them to heal this wound and release it when they're ready. Okay? Cool. Okey doke. Any questions from anybody?
No,
Just listening?
just, yeah.
Okay. Okie dokie. Any questions from any of my fine ladies over here? You'll have all these worksheets, I promise, and you can read through them some more. And if you do have questions, post them in the group. The reason I skipped over this page is because we're gonna go through a lot of this next week when we go through soul retrieval. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Wow, guys, I'm just gonna say, I'm really kicking butt with this whole timing thing these last few weeks. I'm shooting my own horn for a second because my time management skills.
Good for you, because I suck at it.
You're mic'd up no matter how soft you talk.
Oh, shit. There I go again.
Oh my
boy.
God.
Okay, let's put the Italian away. Let's just put her in your pocket.
You
Just,
know,
yep, yep.
professionalism is out the window.
Oh, don't speak that in existence. Yes.
Shh.
Okay,
My clients know it.
I think mine do too. Two peas in a pod. Okay. Let's see. Why did I close this? I needed this. So we're going to go over aura imbalances. Ah, yes, the elements. We have an hour. Okay. I don't need to rush. Okay, so I need to bring this with me. Thank you. Just hold that. Appreciate you. Don't touch, no touchy, no touchy. Just keep your hands where they were. You're doing great. Okay, so we're gonna go through everything I talked about today in just a very systematic way, pretty much. So when you're implementing the four directions, hummingbird, serpent, jaguar, condor, eagle, you have to do it in the literal directions, not just like, oh, I'm standing here, so this is north and that's south. Like this is actually north. When I put a compass on my phone on this pillow, this is north, that's south, that's east, that's west. Mother Earth, Father Sky. So get a compass app on your phone or whip out a compass if you have one. If you do, kudos to you. That's pretty cool. And map out the directions. It just kind of worked in my favor that it was set up this way. It made it easier to remember. But that is with that. So I forgot to bring that book downstairs. I'll go over calling them all in next week. But basically, it can be as simple as I now call in Serpent of the South, Jaguar of the West, Hummingbird of the North, and Eagle of the East to support me, guide me, and protect me through this session, to allow all harmful, unwanted, and unneeded energies that no longer serve myself or my client to their highest good to be disrupted, released, and grounded. Within this space, I also call on Mother Earth and Father Sky and ask that within these 6 directions, a beautiful sacred space is now created, and we are protected and divinely directed throughout this healing today. It could be as simple as just setting that intention. There's a beautiful incantation in that book that I was referencing that if you get the book, you can see it. I can also take a picture of it and post it if you guys want to see it. It's my favorite.
You do this like before every session or just like once a day?
I do this in my head when the client is taking their breaths. So once I ask them to take a deep breath in, exhale, I walk them through their meditation and they're relaxed. I can either do it with the first 2 breaths or I do it after they're meditated and relaxed. I take that short minute just to call in my angels, ancestors, and guides, right? So you could do it before they come in. You could do it before you do your meditation, or you could do it after the meditation. I think I probably do it before the after the meditation most frequently. I think that's probably the most common approach that I have. Okay. So when we're doing a healing session, if I want to scan their auric body, and you know if you've had a session with me, I'll typically walk on either side of you and I run my hands over the space. Naturally for me, we gotta work on this immediately.
I can feel it's been going for days.
Okay, I was like, oh my gosh. I was just about to say, like, naturally for me, I immediately connect with their body. It makes me nauseous.
It has been
Okay.
making, yeah. I don't know what has been going on.
Yeah, it's right under your breastbone too.
And I don't know if it's,
I feel it up into my throat.
it's not been good.
Okay, well, we got you, boo-boo.
Yeah, I don't know which client got me, but one of them did.
So when I'm standing next to someone, and for me, it's very normal for me, as you see, to immediately feel what physically they go to as soon as I allow myself to. So that's the thing. Like if I'm out in a crowd, I'm not going to feel the things unless that's my intention to. And that took time to practice that. Like my mom can vouch for this. For years, I had horrible social anxiety. I couldn't be in crowds. I'd get anxious. I'd get migraines. I'd get sick. And at that point in my life, I didn't realize it's because I was feeling everybody's stuff. I kept thinking I was sick or something was wrong with my body. And it was that I was holding all of these energies and I didn't have the awareness to know that it wasn't mine. And so when I knew that, hold on, she got kicked out of the Zoom room. So when I knew that, that's when I was able to shield myself. And that's when I started to be more mindful of what's mine and what's not mine. And it's just a mindful practice of if I feel something in my body, it's having that deep relationship with your body of, is this mine? Or why all of a sudden am I feeling this? Right. So right away I knew that's hers. I hadn't been feeling it all day. That was hers right away. Okay. So for me, naturally, since I feel them, I start with their body first and then I go to their aura.
And it's weird. It's not anxiety.
No,
It's not sick stomach. It's
It's your
going
vagus
from my
nerve.
toes to here. This eye's been twitching too for days. It's my vagus nerve. Okay, it's my vagus nerve.
the whole
I
thing.
triggered something.
Well,
I've
you've been doing your
tapping.
tapping. And
Yes.
so your body's just purging it.
Oh my Lord.
Probably if you're grinding your teeth more, that's why
No,
too.
I'm not. I'm not grinding, thank God.
Yeah.
But it's been the tapping and the energy work.
We'll get
I'm,
there.
I'm going to be quiet, I
Okay.
promise. But I just want you to know. I think, in other words, I did it to myself.
I'm
How
sorry. I'm
unusual.
trying to find a piece of surprise. Let me look. I don't have anything. Anyway, back to class.
Okay.
So, so as I was saying, if you physically feel in that manner, kind of how I do, you might naturally just let yourself flow in the manner. Don't hold yourself to a systematic approach, because every time I try to step away from that and sense the aura first, energetically, like my guides, whatever label you want to call them, spirit, God, universe, wouldn't let me move on to the aura until I talked about physically what was going on, because that's what they needed to know. So for her, physically, I feel solar plexus right below the breastbone and right where the bra strap is between the shoulder blades, a lot of pain there. And then they bring me down to the ankles, but as I touch the ankle, it actually brings me to the back of the knee. And so I have to talk about those things. And now we go hips. And now it's more so left hip. Yeah.
Bingo. She's nailing it.
So as I go through the body, it's basically spirit's way of saying, I need you to get this channel out. They need to know that we're here. They need to know that we're aware of what's going on in the body. Now we can move to the aura.
No, I'm going to cry.
Right. It's okay. You want tissue?
No.
Okay. You want me to take your mic off?
Nope.
Okay. So, if you don't feel any of that stuff or anything going on with that, that's totally fine too. You can just sense their aura. So the way in which we sense the aura is so this is actually perfect, not to take advantage of your emotional, but it makes your aura easier to access. So you're doing great. You're doing great.
I told you I needed this.
So as their aura starts to open, and typically the aura is more open and available when we're more open and available, right? And so I have tissues right here. I got you. There you go. I'm gonna put another
They all
one.
probably think I'm an absolute shit show.
Have you met your daughter? Why do you think you guys call me Junior?
Okay.
Okay. Two peas in a pod. So when we're scanning the aura, I recommend don't put your hands in when you're starting. You don't want to do this when you're starting, because you don't want to dive into their energy, kind of like what we talked about when we first started level 2, talking about clients. We always want to slowly introduce it. The same thing goes for the aura, right? So we're going to put our hands over the top, and I could tell for her, see, as I start coughing, that I immediately feel it in my ears and in the back of my throat when I get to her crown. And that tells me there's probably a hole here or there's a blockage here. Because as I even put my hand over her aura, see, it's about a foot and a half away from her head. I start to feel my ears getting heavier and not necessarily tighter, but almost like a pressure building up. Okay. And so that tells me that there's something on the aura here, or there's a blockage within her aura by her head. Because as I go down, that's when my throat gets tight, but it doesn't feel like it's actually the throat. It feels like it's more mental, but these are so clogged up, the crown and the third eye, that the throat is the one reacting. Okay. Does that make sense? And so when we're working with the aura, all I do is I'm now on the outside. So visualize a bubble over her. And so I can tell, like, okay, this blockage, this heaviness in the aura is inside of the bubble. So I'll do that when I get to the healing. Now I'm going to keep scanning over the aura. There's heaviness over on this side. This feels like something that's actually in it. So she's my mom, so I'd naturally want to just pull it out. But when you're doing a healing session on a client and you haven't worked with them before, send white light to it. And when you start the healing session, that's when you can actually get it out. This is just so you have an awareness of, like, okay, here's some things I could start with. Okay. Your ears, my goodness.
My throat. All of it.
Yeah.
Shit show.
What about when you're doing this remotely?
Huh?
What about when you're doing this remotely?
Same exact thing. Just visualize it. I would visualize her like a doll size in front of me. Here's her head, her shoulders, her arms, her torso, thighs, ankles, feet. And I'd visualize the bubble around her. And same thing, immediately first place I want to go is solar plexus, and then I want to go to her heart space. So that tells me if I were over here, if I got closer to her physical aura, as soon as I hit here, I feel more pressure. And that tells me that this is where she's going to have heaviness or blockages. So you just visualize it, whether they're in person or whether they're remote. Visualizing is your intention. You're visualizing what you wish to be doing. The thing with distance and remote healing, and you know, I do all my healings from my chair. The thing is, when you're first starting, follow the systematic approach. As you progress, allow your guide to put their hands on top of your hands and guide you. Your sessions will flow so incredibly well, but allow yourself to follow the systematic. Okay, let's scan the aura. Now let's sit down. Now let's work chakra to chakra. Okay, this one doesn't want to be touched. I'll go to the next one. That one doesn't want to be touched. I'll go to the next one. And don't try and force it. Just kind of clear and then go back. So just keep visualizing, and in the workbook in the shamanic section, I'll put worksheets that outline the organs, skeletal system, nervous system, circulatory system. So you do have visuals of those things. So you don't just have to visualize like an outline of a body. You can get more specific with your intention as well. Okay. Does that help? Yes. No. Cool. Okay. So we'd scan the aura. And so for instance, for her, so let's say we've already started the session. For her, the heaviness I feel at the top, actually, I'll be honest with you. Anytime I feel heaviness in an aura, I usually clear their feet right away. Because this is the reason. If I were to clear her crown, that heaviness doesn't have anywhere to ground, because by the time I hit here, there's already heaviness here. You want to clear this heaviness first. You want to send that white light down around the legs and ground everything out of the body. Because as you do, naturally her energy has more room to allow things to move down into the earth, right? So it's kind of like, wow, we don't have space to ground things anymore. Let me get rid of this so we can. Okay. But also, this is further from the heart space and from the mind. So if we have people, especially if they are emotional, or especially if this is vulnerable for them and they're uncomfortable, being distant from the center, from the heart, from the bridge of their being, allows them kind of tiptoe into the session and to get more regulated. Okay. I'm going to work on your feet a little. Okay. I have to stand here.
Is that a poor bird that hit the window?
No, it's just the creaking of the floor
Oh, okay.
over there. It's the cool air coming in my crawl space. So for instance, the difference with shamanism is that when we're sending healing energy to the physical body, you might see things other than heaviness. In shamanism, we see lots of chains, swords, rope, all these things indicative of being bound or tied or intrusions. And so, for instance, for her, I see rope and chain around here in her legs. So this could be if she has physical manifestation of pain in her ankles or pressure in her ankles, that could also be why there's energetic blockages. So when we have blockages on the legs, it's thoughts, feelings, beliefs, or emotions that are stopping us from moving forward or from letting go of something of the past. Just have the intention of just divine healing energy. So I noticed as soon as I cleared down here, I felt more up here was available. So what happened is it's kind of like Tetris. Oh, this layer cleared. Here's another layer. It's just going to keep clearing. And you'll notice, like, as soon as I put my hand down, I felt heaviness on my arm, which tells me that there's more layers that are coming down to be cleared. And it's just very gentle. You don't blast them. It's just. And in my head, all I'm saying is I'm sending love and healing to this area of the body. And any and all energy that does not serve her is now being washed away. It's safe to move forward and safe to let go. So now I'm being drawn more to the left, right? Right? Yes. Okay. The feminine. Ooh, got myself all twisted there for a second. The feminine's indicative of the past. It could be this past. It could also be past lives. And so you'll see very intentional with my hands when I'm on the physical body. So I'd be brushing over their feet, but then I'd also kind of, with shamanism, for instance, I'm visualizing like a rope coming out of the sole of her foot. That's just stuck, stagnant energy. And I just gently pull it out. And if at any point I feel resistance, I stop. So I'm not feeling any resistance. So I just kind of let it come out. And you'll feel it shift when they feel it shift. She naturally wanted to move right when I exhaled. Like her foot wanted to shift and I wanted to exhale, which tells you you have that energetic release. They might not always move in sync with you, but you'll feel when that energy's shifting. It's just a matter of trusting it. Go ahead. What's your question, Sherry? You know? Okay. I thought you had a question. Okay.
So when she was pulling the cord, I felt it behind the back of my ankle and up the back of my calf.
Woohoo. So that's probably back of the
And
knee, what we were talking about.
yeah, and that ankle's been sore. Now the ankle's not sore and it's more released, more relaxed. And that was the one that was rebuilt.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's
She has a metal plate in one of her ankles.
um,
But you little cute robot, you. But so going back to your question earlier about how do I know if it's mental, emotional, physical, or energetic, for instance, that's an energetic blockage, right? Energetic blockage. Why? Sorry to say this, but it's probably because there's something foreign in the body. And so the energy is disrupted from its natural flow. So her having regular clearings on this part of the body is going to really help her not have that tension in the ligaments behind her knee, right? And so intuitively, I'm pushing on that ligament right behind the knee, and that's where I feel it in my body. And so it tells me that her IT band probably naturally gets much tighter here. Her hip probably gets out of balance, but it's all because of whatever's happening in the ankle there.
That's the spot. That's where the plate and all the work is, right where you are, and goes into the toe. Now
exactly.
And I started running again after years this week. So I irritated it. So you nailed it.
You didn't invite me.
I did not invite you.
We're going to talk about this later. Okay. Okay. And so for instance, like you guys know, I'm not usually, I don't usually put my hands on clients, right? I know my mom actually responds really well to the physical touch in the beginning because it helps her brain to be aware of where the healing was going. And it helps people with monkey mind, people who struggle to focus. You're going to be like,
I'm stealing that. My ADHD clients. Monkey mind. Never heard that.
Oh my gosh. I used to hear that for years. I thought that was a really common phrase.
No.
Yeah, monkey mind. So, ooh, a peanut, you know? So when you're putting your hands on them, it helps them to kind of be aware of it. Usually I'd keep the blanket on regardless, but it's just so you guys could see the difference in where I was putting my hand on their body. Okay. So now that we've cleared that, that heaviness I feel around her legs is gone. And now I feel the stomach, right? So now we're getting into the chakra system, and that's going to be something that's more intuitive. Ideally, this is how I want your sessions to progress, right? So we started with the aura, we sensed where the heaviness was. Feet not heavy, guess what? Head's not as heavy. Why? Because now there's space for that energy to start flushing down. I would have wasted my time starting up there when I knew that there was heaviness there. So the purpose of scanning the aura is because it's kind of like, where do I want to start? What's going on here? It's not like a chiropractor where you take an x-ray and then you never take an x-ray again. And you keep working off of that first x-ray. Every time they come in, their body's in a new place. They've encountered new emotions, people, situations. So you always got to scan. Okay. Yeah, so for her immediately, right here, about sacral, so lower abdomen kind of now. It was the upper abdomen when we started. It was closer to the heart space and the chest. So what's that tell us? As we made space, this blockage was able to move down. I didn't even touch it. Why? Because now her body has the space to start grounding and processing this energy out. The body naturally wants to heal. It naturally wants to let go of the heaviness. Okay. So immediately I want to draw the say hey key. That's for mental and emotional healing. And as soon as I do that, I feel the sides of my abdomen get tight. Let it go. That breath.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize I
You
did it.
didn't realize you were holding it? Oh, I did. I was like, my abdomen's tight. What you doing? And allow your back and your shoulders to settle. There you go. I'm sending white healing energy into the abdomen, asking spirit, God, universe to fill this body with divine white light. And I'm just literally watching it expand through her stomach, through her pelvic floor, a lot with the pelvic floor and hips right now. This hip especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it go up almost like sciatica a little.
That's the running thing.
If only you had someone to run with. Stop working, Debbie. Okay. So for instance, in shamanism, you see threads, you see these, you're going to know that they're basically foreign energies in the body that don't need to be there. So for her, she has an emotional attachment. This is to the heart space because I can feel it as I pull on it. It makes me start to get nauseous and it makes my heart space heavy. If you don't have these physical responses in your own body, it's not a reflection of you. This took years. It's just the more you practice, the more you're going to see it. I highly recommend sticking with Reiki until you feel really connected to the energy, then going into this kind of work, because you might think you're pulling on something and nothing's holding it back. And you won't know if you're really connected till you have a strong relationship with your energy body, okay? So what I'm doing is I'm just keeping hold of this string. I'm literally holding it as if it's a string and wrapping my fingers around it. And I'm sending white light where this block, as soon as I send the white light, I felt it release and move down. So now I feel it more in just the stomach and not so much the heart space. So I'm going to pull it a little more. And this is when I feel my mid and lower back starting to get tight. And that tells me it's something in the vagus nerve. It's wrapped around the spine. Okay, so when we're talking about the spine, I'm just going to put this here for a second. Just hold on to that. I'll come back and get rid of it, promise. When we're talking about the spine, your spine, what lays in the crevice of your vertebra, right? So your vertebrae kind of have a little crevice and the bones poke out like this, right? In the middle, that vagus nerve lays right there. And that nerve has other nerves that branch off to every organ, like the heart, like the gut, like the glands, like the thyroid, right? And what do our glands do? What does the thyroid do? It secretes our hormones, right? And so much of the imbalanced energy in the body translates to a trauma that's manifested in the physical. Where? The vagus nerve. Always comes back to the nervous system.
The endocrine system, which is the vagus nerve. Sorry, which also lines up with the chakra system. Oh, you're talking to a trauma therapist. I work with it all day.
I'm going to take your mic in a second. You're going to lose privileges.
Just clear it the heck out.
So now that you've heard my echo, we are working on the vagus nerve. That handles what? The endocrine system?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that come from glands?
Mm-hmm.
I thought so. Okay. Sorry. Degree in biology, Debbie.
Let's go.
Okay. So relax again. It's okay. Because as soon as she got tight, I felt that energy go back. And so it's not, you just got to send white light to it again. It'll start to come up.
Upper back is in such pain, has been for days now. Neck and upper back.
So what we do, oh yeah, I just got nauseous.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm feeling it all in my stomach now.
Mm-hmm.
It's back up a little higher.
Yeah, that's why I was about to
Mm-hmm.
puke on you. Okay. I feel it in my head now.
No, every time you work down there, my head would get,
Really heavy.
yeah,
Yeah.
like right here on the side.
But that's stimulating your vagus nerve. It's
Yep,
gonna go. That's exactly the pressure point too that you use to process out trauma from C1 to C3.
like right here.
Yeah.
Both of 'em.
You have two people in the medical field in one room. This is not good. So we send white light into this imbalance.
It's releasing now, at least in the lower stomach.
Yeah. For instance, so now we have a bucket. So when I send white light, like I told you, usually the gut holds the most heaviness, right? So it's a bucket of crap, quite frankly. And you go ahead, you grab the handle, and it might feel really heavy, but I just literally pull the bucket out. And then you'll have a little bit of like strings and yuck and guck underneath it. But you see how it just was heavy, but it's so easily removed. There wasn't necessarily resistance with it. That's shamanic. Shamanic is very about the imagery of the subconscious. And that's why shamanism is deeply rooted in psychology. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to cleanse down the whole body. There's another layer of her. I see it right here that wants to come down, which tells me that this blockage was big enough that it was keeping part of her soul, part of her wholeness from fully being integrated. So once I hit here, I know the heart space is next because as I try to ground this down, the heart starts to get tight. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm not going to force it down in here. I'm actually going to raise it a little bit because I feel it getting worse. And now I'm going to work from crown to the heart. I'm just sending white light between these 2 points. Why? So her body at this new state of consciousness that we just ground down can get used to this energy because it was resisting me before. So we want her to feel safe, want her to feel comfortable, and to know that all the work we do today is of her highest good and no harm or malice can happen in this space. And it's all healing. Already her body's very naturally releasing because it's wanting to ground now, which is great. You might feel it in your back by your bra strap right now a little. You might even go back into your stomach. So now I get to clear that heaviness that was kind of lingering by your head because now we have more space again. So I personally don't like to clear it all the way down the body. It's kind of like, why would I take all this dirt and push it through all that I just cleaned? I just kind of like to lift it, bring it right out. Oh, it's definitely your pericardium line because my thumb just started to like have a sharp pain go down my arm right into my fingers. And all I'm repeating in my head is that I send divine white light into this space. I'm actually sending it into her jugular. The reason being just to create better flow in that vein, just because they wanted me to. So this would be a perfect example of like my one hand's on her crown chakra and the other one's on like a big vein in her body. So you can work on different bodies at the same time, but it's all very intuitively guided. Now I feel my eyes starting to open up more.
When you say intuitively guided, who's guiding you? Like, how do we get that guidance?
That's what we were talking about earlier with sitting in that silence for that 5 minutes. When you sit in that space, you'll deeply connect with your intuitive mind versus your ego mind. And so it'll be that deep knowing or that, like, have you ever driven somewhere that you drive all the time and then for some reason you're like, I want to take a back road today. I don't want to take the highway, right? That's that intuitive guidance, that very out of nowhere nudge. That's your intuitive guidance. When you lean into that versus your ego, you're going to know where to move. But that means that you feel safe and comfortable enough to sit with yourself, to trust yourself, to be at peace with yourself. And that's why I say practice those 5 minutes of sitting in silence and then practice just allowing that Reiki to flow through your body. And that will strengthen immensely for you. And this will become much less questionable and less the whys of the logical mind and more of the, oh, just experience of the intuitive mind. Now I'm working on her third eye. The third eye is a great chakra to use for trust. And so you just send in, like, it's a great place to say affirmations around you trust your deepest knowing, you trust your intuition, you trust your higher self, you see clearly, you know your worth and your value. Basically, IFS, you're reparenting them. That's your intention, is to allow them to align with these higher frequencies. And you visualize that white light carrying that intention that you are love, you are one, you are safe, you are healing. This healing energy fills your body. And then see, more blockages want to come out. You see how nothing's like a let's rip it out. Everything's a very like kind of flowy. That's how it should always feel. When you feel like if I'm flowing and I feel, oh, it's starting to resist, I send white light to it and I'll chop it wherever I've released it to. And if the rest of it doesn't want to come out, I leave it.
Feel it here.
Like I told you, your pericardium line, and I was
Oh,
working on
okay.
your jugular. And that's why
Okay.
I was working on your crown, and here it tells me your blood pressure is probably high. That's probably why.
Really? I got pain like right when I was before you even
Yeah.
started, but okay.
Yeah. But like I
Interesting.
said, it's that thumb that's really tight for me right now. This thumb, the same side. And that's why I said there's something with the veins going on there. So it's probably just your blood flow. But here's a great example. Another another way to work on that heart space is, ooh, you can send healing right into the hand. You can relax. I got you. Your arm's not going to fall anywhere.
I am relaxed.
I know. Just
Okay.
like your hand
Got it.
itself.
That's as relaxed as I go.
And just imagine white light going into the back and the front of their palm, up through their shoulder, their neck, into the heart space, because this is when you're working with that heart line, that meridian for the emotional body.
Yeah, it moved.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's sort of dissipating.
Yeah. You're going to feel it through your throat and your chest in a second.
Feel it in my throat now.
I'm literally just imagining a white light coming through my crown, down my shoulders, through my palms, and almost like a healing water filling her hand and going up through her veins and her muscles and her arm, through the throat chakra, through the collarbones and the chest, just expanding, almost filling her like just a gentle water. That kind of brings me into the elements that we have to cover today. Like water is one of my favorites to work with. I just visualize like a healing water filling the body. Not like a flood, because some people have a fear of water. I've also experienced that. I had one girl woke up and she said, I'm scared of swimming, and I felt like I was in the ocean. I was like, oh, okay. So I just gentle water, the light white light. And now I'm visualizing it going through to her other shoulder and down her other arm. Better.
Yep.
Calmer.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo. That's what we want. Okay. Let's see. So let's talk about masculine and feminine for a second because it's great for those in helping professions because typically their right side tends to be the one that has a lot of imbalances, right? And so I recommend when you're working with the right and the left side, so your left side is your feminine, your right side is your masculine. I want you to visualize a line right down the middle that kind of splits the energy, okay? And I want you to visualize how bright does one side look compared to the other. And so what would we do if the left side wasn't as bright? Chokore, to increase energy. Increase that brightness of the left side. Just keep your hand there and imagine, this is where I typically imagine them doll size. And I just fill them with white light on that side of their body. You can also call on Mother Moon and hold the moon in your hand and use the feminine energy of the moon, the intuitive body, to cleanse, like almost as if you're holding the moon like a volleyball or a healing light, right? And you cleanse this side of their body with that feminine moon energy. I usually only use the moon for healing on new moons or full moons because its energy is at a peak. I don't really use the sun and the moon often. I usually just have the intention of white light. And so as I fill her left side with feminine and just healing energy, I'm still called to the crown. And you can do both at once. As I'm flushing white light down the body, the left side with this hand, I'm just kind of sending healing energy into the crown with this one. Immediately, I felt the energy shift. Very good. And I feel it in the third eye again. So it tells me that whatever was cleared on the left side is also what was creating a block in the intuitive body, right? But the left side is the intuitive self. Say hey ki, chokore. There we go. That's going to be your ears. Okay. Any questions so far? Makes sense? Very intuitive. Shamanic healing, I prefer. It's kind of more of like a dance. You get to like really explore it, play around, move in the way that works. Now, how are you doing?
Fine.
Andy?
Good.
Okay. When we're working with elements, for instance, I want to clear her throat next. For the throat, if I want to work with the element of water, right? I wouldn't flood her throat with water. I ain't trying to drown her. You know what I'm saying? So you literally visualize as if like your fingers have this very gentle little swirl of water. You just pour it into the throat. And I always keep one hand, I'll use the other hand, keep one hand at the side and the other hand on top. Like we said, for abuse and assault or just constriction, we don't want to put our hands by the throat. That's not comfortable. That almost makes them energetically want to close off. Okay, so you want to keep one hand at the side. Honestly, I typically, this is where I visualize them in my mind. It's just easier. This is like uncomfortable as a practitioner, you're leaning forward. But also like you're going to be there for about 5 minutes. So I always visualize like, here's her head, here's her throat. And I'm just putting gentle healing water, like a white healing water into the throat chakra, not into the throat itself, cleansing the throat chakra. So I visualize a ball of blue light, kind of like this pillow. And I just visualize this cleansing water going over it. And I roll this ball of blue light around, kind of like it's a baseball sized marble, and make sure it's clear and balanced. Okay. And so let's do that really quick. And immediately I want to go to the heart space once I open the throat. I'm just going to stay in the throat for a little because as I cleanse this, I'm just allowing that healing energy to move down to the heart. So kind of introducing it to the heart by staying in the throat for now. Because the heart's typically very sensitive. Just washing energy out of her body that doesn't need to be there. So down each arm from the throat, down each arm basically is what I'm visualizing. Now I'm going to turn her sideways. Instead of reaching for the heart, I'm just going to have her head, throat, heart. Okay. That's how I do every session. It's just what works for me. I don't like reaching. I don't find it comfortable. So now I have one hand behind the heart and one hand kind of upright, not covering it. A lot of her heart imbalances in the back of the body. So if she has a lot of back pain or tension, it's because she holds a lot of this imbalance in the subconscious and in the spine and in the vagus nerve. So I'm just sending white light to the spine, the vagus nerve, the back muscles. This hand is going to the heart chakra. Here's all that yuck and guck that was wrapped around the spine. Kind of just looks like black tar, almost like just like a black fruit roll up that's wrapped around her back muscles and her spine. And I just kind of take it off like a sheet and it just kind of like hangs like a wet rag that you're like, oh, don't need it. And see now the back of the neck is wanting to release. So that's all vagus nerve. When it moves up the neck and the spine, that's when you know you're removing a blockage in the nervous system. When you feel a need to continue moving up the neck and the spine, that means that, or like if you go from the middle of the back and you're visualizing the spine and you intuitively just want to keep moving up and you even eventually go to the brain, that's when you're releasing a blockage in their nervous system. And just keep doing that. Just send white. And but with that, you need to be very gentle, very like very feminine with your energy. Because if you're abrupt with it, you'll just trigger them. Very gentle, very loving. See, breathing at the same time. That's your dead giveaway. So I just spun her. Sorry, I just wasn't even thinking. I just made it easier. Okay, so now I feel her head getting heavy, which means that that's just a lot of energy moving. So this is where I kind of pause. And I just send white light from her heart and her solar all the way up to her head. And I just kind of keep brushing this white light over her and just kind of allow her to acclimate. I'm just going to kind of turn her feet back into her body and her head right over here. And just kind of let her ground back down. Any questions so far? Anybody? Any questions about anything? Nope. Okay. So
Um, Wait, I do have a question
go for it.
about some of the other elements because water, like when you talked about water, that felt very intuitive to me. And I
Yeah.
think even now when I'm doing Reiki, I'm kind of moving, like my light is like a watery light, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, when I'm doing Reiki already.
Yeah.
But what does it look like when you're connecting with other elements, which I assume are fire, earth, and air?
Yep. That's where we're gonna go to right now. Perfect. Perfect
Okay,
segue.
cool. Hmm.
Um, so I'm working with fire. I don't put fire into the body. I use fire like a sacred flame around the body or around the edge of the aura and allow it to be something that burns away harmful, unwanted energies. Like if they have something on them and you know like it should release, and it's not something you have to pull out of them, it's just something that's kind of like stuck on them. You could ask for this gentle white healing flame to just burn it away. And when it burns it away, they're unharmed. And you visualize the ashes like these golden or white flakes of light. So you're basically having the intention of transmuting a very dense, heavy energy. So instead of sitting there and putting white light on it forever, you can use fire with the intention of, oh, I'm burning away this dagger that's pushing into her aura, right? And you watch it melt into this white light and it goes into the ground. So fire is, I don't promote it much to my students. I found a lot of them end up trying to be Dragon Ball Z, and it's more one that's meant to be a healing flame, kind of like Saint Germain's healing flame, like a purple violet flame. I have a lot of students that after a session, they visualize themselves covered in this purple flame and they're burning away any energies of their client they might have taken on, or they're burning away energies of the external world with a white healing flame. So if you do Reiki on yourself, you can burn and melt away energies that are not yours, that don't serve you, or that are creating a heaviness. And so fire is one that we don't put inside the body ever. And if we use it on the body, it's typically by the legs, okay? Legs and the back. Like if they have leeches, right? You'd burn leeches off their back and things like that. Um, with wind, wind is my second favorite. Wind is similar to breath, that exhale. Wind is another one that is on the outside of the body. I typically use wind to cleanse them, right? So if I just use water, I use wind to cool the body down and water to wash away all the ash. You can use them back to back. I use wind a lot when I want to clear their thoughts. I want to clear their channel of any negativity or any limiting beliefs. I blow or I visualize almost like a gentle breeze with my hand. You ever see a gentle fall breeze and the leaves start to spin on the ground? I visualize wind moving like that, kind of like Pocahontas. And you just kind of cleanse all that heaviness away, right? And so you laugh, but you'll notice it helps you visualize, right? It helps you give you a visual to what wind might look like. And so, but also it's a very magical movie, so I love it. Anyway, when we use that Pocahontas wind all around them, we're also sending this very loving, very intuitive, very cleansing oneness of healing around them, right? It's like this. You ever stand in a breeze and just want to spread your arms open? There's something about wind that allows freedom and life. Prana right? Like breath to move through the body. So if you flush them with wind, I don't ever like put wind into chakras. I'll either flush them with water or I flush them with wind and watch all the heaviness leave their body. Okay. And then earth, when I ground them, I typically, like I said, I visualize them in the earth laying in a field of grass. That's how I use earth, right? Or I visualize Mother Earth, like the actual Mother Gaia or Pachama, right? To stand by their feet and put her hands on their feet. And as her hands are on the feet, I visualize these beautiful bright green roots growing from the soles of their feet into the earth, right? So that's how I would use Mother Earth or the earth element. I would use it as, okay, they're safe to be grounded and to lay in this grass and to feel the warmth of the sun on them. Not the sun as in Father Sky, but just picturing this earthly scene so they feel at peace being grounded. Does that make sense? Yeah. Water and wind are probably the top two that most people use, myself included. I use fire mostly for myself when I want to burn things away, or when there's just, or if it's been like a really big clearing and I want to just like make sure everything in their aura is burnt into ashes and the ground and it's purified. But it's always like a white or a purple flame. Does that answer your question? Woohoo. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Elements, aura imbalances. Okay, so in shamanic healing, the major difference from Reiki is that in shamanic healing, instead of a white pillar of light coming down, they have what's called a luminous energy body, and they picture like a golden orb above your crown. So you have your crown chakra, and then you have this golden orb. And it's basically just an extra step when you call in this pillar of light, which is kind of why I didn't harp on it much. But it's just they channel this pillar of light, just like in Reiki, down through their luminous energy body, which is their aura, right? And then they visualize the healing energy as golden light, not white light. So again, same practice, same method, different lenses and different language used. So either way you wish to adopt is going to benefit you. I know I teeter-totter between the two. It really just depends on my mood. And it's okay for it to be that way because it means it's what you're more in alignment for that day. Okay. Another thing with shamanic healing, they believe that when you rotate your hand one way 3 times, it opens it. And when you rotate it the other way, you're cleansing it. Okay. And then once you cleanse it, you rotate it again 3 times to ground it back down. And so you open, you cleanse, you close. And so do you have to hold yourself steadfast to one direction or another? No, I usually do mine very intuitively. Then at the end of the session, just like we say with Reiki, make sure every chakra is spinning in the same direction when you're done, right? Make sure everything's the same color and vibrancy and equal size. Do I really stick to that? I think I usually am just sending white or golden light into it. And I typically always grab the chakra and run my hands around it. I'll do the 3 times to open it, but I usually just hold my hands to send it healing energy or I intuitively move them. And when I'm ready to close them, yeah, I guess I do spiral it back down. I wouldn't say it's 3 times when I spiral it back down, though. I'd say it's more so intuitive based on how receptive they are and how slow I need to go and what works for their nervous system. Does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Do you have any questions, email lady?
Mm-mm.
How you feeling?
Falling asleep.
Oh, you are. That's good. Take a nap, Cub Scout. Okay. I'm going to take your mic then. You can lay here as much as you like. I'm happy I took the mic for that one. It's 10 to 2 on the dot. Okay. I am done with you, my dear. I love you. Okay. Have a fabulous day. Move on to the next.
Grandma.
Oh, here's your eyeballs.
Thanks, Mom. Have a good day.
Text me when you're home.
Okay, honey, bye.
I won't be done till 4:30, so I'll grab Doodle and then I told Adam I'd say hi, so.
Okay. I don't know what grandma wants. We'll see. I love
Okay.
y'all.
Can you just lock it on your way out and shut my screen for me, please? Thank you. Any questions in our last 10 minutes? That was a lot of information in one day. Yeah. If you need some time to marinate with that information and then ask questions, I totally get that because that was a lot of stuff. Anybody? Anything? Or you want some time to kind of sit with it?
I had a comment about fire. I used to dream about fireplaces sometimes.
Yeah.
And the warmth, I was thinking if I felt someone that was cold or cut off or was afraid of water, or
Yeah.
something, there is a gentle side of fire that would be
Yeah.
like a fireplace
Mhm.
that you could hear it crickle and crackle and keep people warm. But I'll definitely not put it in their chakras or anything. But I was
Exactly.
thinking about maybe even having it hang out somewhere, if
Yeah.
someone was feeling cold,
That's
to
a
me.
great comment for sure, because I know there's been sessions where I feel someone's energy very cold and I
Right.
visualize like little baby flames, like flame emojis in my palms. And it's almost like all you're doing is just warming up their energy field.
There you
That's a,
go.
this is a very great, yeah, I'm happy you said that. I totally forgot about that because it's not a frequent thing that you sense with
No,
people. Mm-mm.
right.
Very good.
Thank
Love
you.
that. Any questions about anything else? Because if not, I'll let you guys go early. And if you want to sit and ruminate on this stuff and post questions before next week, feel free to do so. But other than that, I want you to go home and practice. I didn't have you guys practice today because I think that it would benefit you more to practice sitting in the silence, feeling that Reiki flowing through you. Do kind of what we talked about in the beginning with that self-treatment. Really just start to feel that. And let's start from there before we throw some other things into it right yet, because we have 2 more weeks. We have plenty of time to practice between now and then. But finish up your level 2 attunements. Do what you can. Be kind to yourself. And other than that, I will see you next Saturday.
Thank you.
You're
Cool.
so
Thanks,
welcome.
Jordan.
You're welcome, my ladies.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Okay.
weekend.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye.
Bye.